Wonderful. Thank you. Sorry about that. Here we go on,
No worries.
on our YouTube channel. Hold on.
Which is that? What is that YouTube channel, by the way? I'll put it on my Facebook right now.
YouTube.com/spaced out radio.
Gotcha.
Hey, everybody on YouTube, how are you doing? We have a new sound coming up at you as we've been working our tails off for about a week here to redo the entire Spaced Out Radio studio, to get everything up and running, to make it actually a little bit easier for us to make radio happen and eventually set up for us to be a little bit more easily accessible to put my face on camera, which is never a pretty thing, but it is what it is. So, you know, this is something that we do. This is what we're doing right now. Cliff Barackman is our guest tonight on the show, and you know what? I'm excited to have him. I'm a big Bigfoot fan, and you guys know that this is his first time on this show. We're going to have a good time starting in about 4 minutes here. So let's give a quick shout out to everybody who is here so far. Greco, good to see you. Welcome to the show. Bomber, always appreciative. Devin, good to see you here. Brett Lewis, we could never start a show without Brett Lewis. Good to have you here. And Cashew, thank you. I got to get used to this whole new system because literally I have moved all of my cameras around, and I tell you, it's bad. I'm not an attractive guy, man. I shouldn't be doing this. Aaron, Aaron, good to have you. Vintage Beard, Chris Mo, Go 66, thank you for coming on in. Nicole, thank you for joining us. Steam Train Mark from Australia, how is tomorrow looking? Please give us an update to let us know if we are alive tomorrow or not. The gorgeous and fantastic Denali Princess, the official princess of Spaced Out Radio. Jules, you're looking fantastic. Ron Weaver, good to have you here. Thank you. JML, appreciate you. Ad Gnome, thanks for coming on in. There's a bunch of you here. I am way behind on this. I apologize. Okay. I know the sound is off by a little bit here. Okay. We are still working on this to try and get everything kind of organized, but that's okay. That's okay. Cliff, how you doing, man?
I'm great. How are you doing?
I am doing good. I got to admit, little bit nervous going into this, but what can I do? What can I do?
Breathe deeply.
Yeah. You know, I didn't get much sleep this last week because we've been, Chuck and I, you just heard Chuck there. Him and I have been working our tails off trying to get everything going here for the new look of the studio, and literally rearranging everything and moving everything into a centralized board. Hey, Human Carl, thank you so much for the super chat, man. I appreciate that. I don't know how this is going to go. I really don't. Instead of hitting about 17 buttons like I had to before, I have one switch. One. It's weird. I'm pretty sure, Cliff, I might butcher this a little bit, but we're gonna figure this out. All right, let's go live here. And for you being the first time, you're probably here saying, what the hell did I get myself into here? But that's okay. We're gonna make this work for us. All right, so we have that one going there. Go. world. This, my friend, is Spaced Out Radio. I am your host, Dave Scott, sitting in the captain's chair of our headquarters. Show on our terrestrial affiliates around North America and actually on TalkStream Live and Revolution Radio. If you want to take a listen to our archives, they are free at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Just do me the favor, hit that subscribe button. Our website is spacedoutradio.com, where we have a plethora of features for you, including rocking up Bumblefoot and reading up on Captain Church Tonight's show is brought to you by Time Charity. Time Charity today. You can find us on our website. Tonight we are talking with one of the legends. And when we go into legends, this is kind of where we go. We want the big names of the field. We want the people who are getting dirty down and making things happen when it comes to all things supernatural. And in my opinion, Bigfoot is one of those creatures. Cliff Barackman is here tonight. You may recognize his name. Fantastic beard on this man as well. His interest in the sciences drove him to a teaching career where he could share his love and appreciation of the natural world with young people and participate in the occasional sing-along. While Cliff was navigating his life, his growing interest in the Bigfoot phenomena drove him to travel to other parts of the country to look into the mystery. But extensively traveling the West Coast, he found himself unsatisfied with living in Southern California and wanting to live closer to the elusive Bigfoot and its habitat. After living in various parts of California and Washington State, he eventually settled into Portland, where he lives today. Then at the bottom of hour number 3, I will bring you the SOR Newswire, brought to you by Paranoia Magazine. Mr. Cliff Barackman, always a pleasure to have you on Spaced Out Radio. How are you?
I'm great tonight. How are you doing?
I am great. We're having a little bit of a technical difficulty in certain areas with this new system that we have going here. But, you know, the main thing is we're glad to be back on the air. We're glad to have someone of your stature on this show tonight. My friend, I got to ask you, in regards to Bigfoot, well, what makes you believe that this creature is out there?
Well, you know, it's the evidence. So it's really not a matter of belief at all, because really when you get down to it, the word believe means you think something is true despite of a lack of evidence. But I knew Sasquatches were real based on the evidence long ago. The evidence is really overwhelming. And what I find is that the more diehard the skeptic, the less exposed to the evidence they've been. If people would just take the time to learn about the work that has been done and the congruency of the evidence, I think very few people would not think Sasquatches were real.
Now, what you know, going back, you're a teacher. You have a love of music. You're someone who is trying to you know, carve out a niche young in your life, man. And here you are, you know, searching for this crazy animal in the forest. How did you go from being a student of the scientist to getting into the field of Sasquatch?
Well, you know, I think I guess I've just always been kind of weird. I mean, really, because I enjoy eccentric, strange subjects. And I'm not stupid. I'm not crazy. I'm just kind of eccentric, and I like the things that are perhaps off the beaten path a bit. When I was an educator, I was an elementary school teacher, because elementary school teachers teach everything, as you know, or at least up here down here in the States they do. I'm assuming it's true in Canada as well. And so I was never excellent at any one thing, but I was pretty darn good at just about everything I tried to be. And I find that the Sasquatch subject kind of applies to that as well. You don't want to specialize in any one thing, because being a Bigfooter involves being so many different things. You wear a lot of hats when you do this. So it just kind of fit my personality. You know, it's kind of eccentric. It's kind of very wide as far as the diversity of things you need to be into. And it just, I don't know, man, just kind of settled with me.
Cliff, when you started looking into this creature, do you remember how you gained interest in it?
Well, I was interested as far back as I can remember. I remember when I was in thinking about Sasquatches on some level or another when I was like in kindergarten or something like that. Because I was blessed to grow up in the 1970s, which such things as In Search Of and Legend of Boggy Creek kind of all surfacing around that time. And I guess it was like the media that kind of hooked me. because I've always just loved the unusual. But really, I never thought too much about them being real or not. I assumed they were because I was just a kid. I had no reason to think that or to think otherwise. But when I was in college, that's when I first stumbled across a book that was a scholarly journal written by scientists on the subject of Sasquatches. And I realized, holy smokes, anthropologists, at least some, very, very few, but some anthropologists are actually taking this seriously. And while going through the evidence, I started asking myself the questions. If these things are not real, what is the explanation for the fact that literally every indigenous group of people in North America in suitable habitat have stories of giant hair-covered man-like things living outside in the woods? How could that be true if these things weren't real? Were the Seminoles in Florida, or the Creeks at the time, speaking to the Coast Salish in British Columbia? I don't think so. The most reasonable explanation is that there's a biological entity behind it. And then I said, well, gosh. And then I started looking at the morphology of the foot and the work of Dr. Krantz, and the science overwhelmed me. And I realized, holy crap, not only are these things weird and quirky and unusual and eccentric, but they're probably real. And that was 26 or something years ago, and I've just been hopelessly drowning in the subject ever since.
It's always amazing how people get into this field because, we want to make sure that they are real stories. I mean, the intrigue, the legends, the fascination. Was there ever a time that you thought, before you got into this, that these were just stories told by people to keep kids from wandering away while they're camping or to get them to go to bed early?
Maybe not specifically those things, but I think that before I was exposed to the evidence, like most people, I just kind of thought, well, this is a fun topic. It's like the hollow earth or something like that. Well, of course the earth's not hollow. We know more about it than that. The evidence is there, but that's a fun story to play with, or Atlantis or any of these other strange sort of things that there's, hints about, but probably aren't real and the evidence isn't really there for. So I've kind of considered it one of those things until I found out that the evidence that was available is totally congruent with that of what we know about paleoanthropology, other ape species, and all that sort of stuff.
Okay, so with that, I mean, there is such a definite tone in learning what this is all about. Who did you look up to when you started studying this creature?
I remember the first book there were a couple books, actually. The Scientist Looks at the Sasquatch by Krantz and Markotic. There was a Halpin and Ames book, Man Like Monsters on Trial. They were compilations of journal articles. But the first book that really did this for me was Dr. Grover Krantz's book, Bigfoot Sasquatch Evidence. Well, actually, that's the second edition. The first edition was Big Footprints. And that's when I said, oh, here's an anthropologist. He's a specialist in bones and also in human anatomy or human evolution. And when I started reading about his work, I said, well, holy smokes, yeah, these things are real. There's really no other way around it.
Okay, so me living here in British Columbia, I mean, I think of people like Dr. John Bindernagel, Renee DeHinden, there's John Green. There's a lot of these people out there who have been legends in this field. And you, over the years, have got to know a lot of these people. You have been someone who is looking very, very much into what they are saying. And these people are not only researchers, but some of them being scientists. Did you ever see a point where, the science was very important in trying to figure out, not only the history of this creature, but what it is today?
Well, I think science is the tool. A lot of people, especially nowadays, there's this whole anti-intellectual movement going on. I find it very disappointing that people think that science is this body of knowledge that's guarded by elites or something like that. And it's absolute rubbish. Science is a process for finding out the truth. You have a question, you propose an answer, and you'd run tests to see if that answer holds up or not. That's what science really is at the end of the day. And I think all of those early pioneers, Renee and John and all those, they all really, well, Renee a little less so because he's a little curmudgeon-y, I think, at the end of the day. But they all were looking to the scientists to pick up the torch and carry it for them, but very few scientists at that time did. Dr. Krantz was almost alone at that point. There were some others in Russia, and he had some other people that were helping him on the side. But Bindernagel, for example, and he was a good friend of mine. He didn't really come on the scene. Well, he was doing work, but he wasn't public about it until much later, actually. But yeah, science is the valuable tool in this, and it's really what's going to do it at the end of the day. And, if the goal is discovery and academic acceptance of the species, it has to be through science. There really is no other way, because that's what academic acceptance literally means. The scientists think it's real.
No, and I can appreciate that. And the scientific aspect of this is, what do you think we are actually looking for? Because this is where, in my opinion, the great debate of Bigfoot actually happens, Cliff.
What are we actually looking for? Well, I think that varies from person to person. Personally, I am looking for evidence that I can share with other people to help educate. I am not in this to prove the animal is real. I know they're real. That's unquestionable to me. I've seen one. I've spoken to thousands of people who have seen them. The evidence is there. It's internally congruent, etc. That's not my role, though, because I'm not naive. I know that to prove Sasquatches are real, it's going to be a dead one. In other words, a bullet or something like that. And I'm not willing to pull the trigger. Did you catch Game of Thrones by any chance? You see that? You saw Game of Thrones probably?
You know what? I can honestly say, and I'm embarrassed to say this, I have not seen an episode.
Okay. Well, those people who have, very early in the story, one of the Starks, one of the main characters, like the Kings or whatever, just the king, he sentences somebody to death, and he says that if you're not willing to swing the sword that beheads the person, then you have no right to sentence that person to death. And I feel the same way about Sasquatches. Like, I know they're real. I don't care what other people think. I'm not trying to prove it to anybody. When you're right about something, you don't need to try to prove it to somebody. I don't care what other people think. So I can't advocate for a dead one because I'm not willing to pull the trigger. It's just not in me. I'm not a hunter, really. I mean, I own a firearm or two, but I'm not a hunter by any means. I'd probably just end up hurting myself. And frankly, I don't know. It's just not in me. So I can't really advocate for a dead one because I'm not willing to pull the trigger. So I don't see that myself as that role. What role I do have, though, is that of an educator. Because at the end of the day, Sasquatches are real, and somebody will pull a trigger someday, or a logging truck will hit one on the way to work, or any number of scenarios, right? So there will be a first impression of the Sasquatch on the North American public at some point or another. And you only get one first impression. So what do I think would be best for them as far as a first impression? A bloody corpse on a slab, or perhaps extended video of maybe a female interacting with its young? What will serve them better? Well, we all know the answer to that. I think it's going to be the video. So that's where my effort is. I'm looking at trying to film one and trying to educate the public that these things are not monsters. And so to kind of like soften the blow of discovery, because discovery is inevitable. They are real.
Right.
It's coming.
Right, and I think so too. I just don't know when. I thought we would have proven this by now, but unfortunately, we haven't. But you bring up the important topic of video here, my friend, and we could probably spend the entire 2.5 hours talking about video here on this show because, we're still relying on a 52-year-old video, still relying on it. And it's unfortunate, but that's just the way it is. Because with CGI, with people in costumes, with technology getting better, and everything along those lines, we see so many people wanting that few minutes of fame, okay, to try and get that next Patterson-Gimlin film. Has there been a film out there outside of Patterson-Gimlin that has really connected or resonated with you? Because I can tell you from talking to thousands of people a night about this topic, the main characterization of any Bigfoot video is we can't trust it because we don't know.
Yeah, that's a problem because there's a lot of hoaxers out there, and the vast majority of photographs and video tend to be false, or the real ones aren't really good enough to do much with. But having said that, there are some pretty good videos out there that if you take the time and crunch the numbers and do the analysis, you're kind of left with, well, if it's not a Bigfoot, I don't know what that is. Off the top of my head, the Stacy Brown video from Florida, the thermal shot. Looking at it, so that might be a person. Well, the problem is Sasquatches kind of look like people wearing suits is the bottom line, and they look like that, so you have to eliminate a person, and the only way to do that really is size and proportion, and maybe they do something of some sort of extraordinary strength that humans can't do. Well, it turns out the Stacy Brown video, based on measurements taken at the site by both Stacy and me, I've been to the site, indicate that animal is somewhere between 7 and 8 feet tall. It's pretty big, man. And also the proportions are exactly like Patty in the Patterson-Gimlin film. The gait is very inhuman in its sort of way. The arms are longer than its legs. It's probably a Sasquatch based on the analysis. But the problem is we live in a soundbite culture, and people don't want to sit down for an analysis or, God forbid, do it themselves. They want somebody to hand it to them on a platter because they either can't or won't or don't want to do the analysis themselves to come to their own conclusions.
Okay, so with the video evidence that is out there, we also see a lot of blurry videos. We see a lot of, people zooming in too far or being, or too quickly, or, I guess zooming in too far would be a proper terminology of that. We see too many people who are trying to film something that looks like it's about 18 miles away and have full confirmation that it is a Sasquatch, so to speak. So my question to you regarding the video footage, can we trust it today? Is there outside
depends on who it's from. You have to know a lot about it to be able to trust it at all. Certain people, even if they did get a real video, I wouldn't believe it. But at the end of the day, you have to know the context. You have to know the location. You have to know a little bit about the gear, hopefully, that they filmed it on. And using all of those puzzle pieces, you have to piece it together. There is no quick and easy answer because none of the footage so far is good enough.
Okay, so how do we make it better? I mean, we have more technology in the field than we've ever had before, Cliff. And yet we're struggling in order to try and find some credible evidence. So you just said yourself that if, let's just say, you don't know me from Adam. You know me as a radio guy and somebody like that, but you don't know what I do out in the forest here, British Columbia. And let's just say I catch a video. What bothers me is that, never mind that I have a position in this field, but somebody who doesn't want to screw the fact over that the field, you immediately said, I can't believe it. Okay. And to me, I consider myself trustworthy. I consider myself somebody who doesn't want to screw over the field, somebody who's like you. I would love to prove the existence. Okay. And that is, to me, daunting of where we are in this field. I don't blame you for having that attitude. Please don't think that I'm trying to pick on you or anything like that. Because I understand you have to have that attitude now because there's too many hoaxers. There's too much garbage out there, and that's going to be frustrating for you as well.
From a neneutral perspective, of a certain quality of footage, I may not believe it right away, but also I may not disbelieve it either. I try to come at believable-looking pieces of footage from a neutral perspective and see where the investigation leads. I don't automatically discount everything that crosses the desk. I look at it and does it fit with what I think I know? And I've seen photographs of Sasquatches, by the way. I've seen excellent photographs of Sasquatches. Videos not so much. The videos are harder to get for a variety of reasons, actually. I've done experiments myself. I keep a camera next to me on the car or whatever, and I failed 98% of the time. 98, and I'm talking about deer and stuff like that. So I understand how difficult it actually is to film something, especially when these things are largely nocturnal and the night vision is so expensive and blah, blah, blah. You get where I'm going. But there are some very good clear photographs that I've seen that the owners just don't want out there for whatever reason, their own personal reasons, mostly because they don't want to be seen as like the local town drunk. The people who live out in these places, these rural America and British Columbia, and Canada in general, they're just widespread everywhere. Sometimes the most valuable thing they own is their reputation. And even now, even in this, post Finding Bigfoot age, there's a lot of embarrassment about having seen or, God forbid, filmed or photographed a Sasquatch. People don't want to be accused of being a liar. Like Bob Gimlin is an excellent example. Bob's experience with the Patterson-Gimlin film was largely negative until like 2001 or something like that. And he realized, oh my gosh, maybe people are interested in this. And he kind of came out of the closet. It almost cost him his marriage. It cost him his reputation in town. And he still held on to the guns and said, no, man, that thing's real. But I can only imagine how it would be for someone else who got I know somebody in Maine, this kid, the guns and said, no, man, that thing's real. But I can only imagine how it would be for someone else who got I know somebody in Maine. This kid in Maine got footage of a Sasquatch, and he was teased and chastised so heavily about having filmed one. He eventually said, "Screw it, yeah, sure, I faked it. Just leave me alone, for God's sake." There's a lot of reputational damage that can be done being associated with this. Luckily, I don't have a good reputation, or I don't have a reputation to worry about. So, of course, I haven't filmed one either. But we'll see what happens when that happens.
So, why do you do it?
I don't know, man. I kind of want. I mean, I love it. I guess that's the real reason. But like, why? I've often wondered. Like, people ask, "Why do you do this, Cliff? Why did you choose this?" And the only thing I can think of to say back is, "I didn't choose this. I mean, I'd be crazy to choose this. It chose me." And there doesn't seem to be anything I can do about it at this point, which is fine. I love it. I really do.
Okay, so you have a lot of fun doing it. You have something that you are enjoying in doing this. Yet, you've also had your own personal success with it, as we only have about 3 minutes here before we got to go to break at the bottom of the hour. This topic has been introduced on television. It's going to, it's had a huge cult following. It's opened up a lot of doors with it. Do you think the mainstream interest due to television has been good for the search of this creature?
Yes and no. Yes and no. Yes, in the fact that a lot of people realize that they're not alone having seen Sasquatches, and they're not the only ones out there who can claim experiences like this. So I think that is good. It's kind of validated a lot of witnesses and a lot of people. And the other way, no, because TV is a shallow, superficial medium at best, and there's a lot of pressure from production companies to basically fake evidence or not tell the truth. A lot of the paranormal shows in general kind of go that direction, unfortunately, or bend it so far the truth is unrecognizable. So I think it's being on TV in general. The subject has taken a beating. Like Bigfoot doesn't belong on Ancient Aliens, for example. I mean, I think that does damage to the subject. And I don't know anything about the productions. I don't know anything about the networks. I don't know if they're faking stuff or not. I just know that a whole lot of shows sure try to push you that direction. Ours didn't. They tried for a little while, but we didn't cooperate. And I can vouch for our show. I know that Finding Bigfoot, we were solid about Bigfoot stuff. We never lied about it. But Bigfoot stuff doesn't belong on Ancient Aliens. It doesn't belong on any of these ghost shows and stuff like that. And I think that does damage to the subject when you associate Bigfoot stuff, which is totally biological, with some sort of paranormal, stuff. Bigfoots aren't really like that. There's no reason to think that, in my opinion, based on the evidence. And I think that does damage to the science behind it.
Cliff Barackman is our guest tonight on Spaced Out Radio. We have him for another 2 hours here on the show. We got about 30 seconds before we have to go to break at the bottom of the hour, Cliff. What's fun about this? What do you enjoy?
You're going to have to say that again. You blanked out on me.
What do you enjoy about going out in the forest? As we got about 30 seconds left.
Our connection's pretty bad. What do I enjoy about something? I'm so sorry.
Can you hear me now?
I don't know what's going on. I don't know if it's my side or your side, but I only get about half what you're saying right now.
All right, we're going to work on that here coming up, as we do have some audio issues coming in right now on Spaced Out Radio. And I am Dave Scott, your host. I know we're going to get through this because we just set out our new audio here on the show. So just bear with us. We are working on it as we speak. Sometimes it's a little bit difficult, but we are getting there. We are getting there. We'll be back with more Spaced Out Radio coming up right after this. kind of where it is.
Well, we'll get through it one way or the other.
Absolutely. So I apologize you being the test subject tonight.
I don't mind. I know how things go, man. Like in my museum here, I'm actually broadcasting from the museum. Internet sucks at home, so we named our life-size Bigfoot model Murphy because of Murphy's Law. When you're Bigfooting or doing anything associated with Bigfoot, everything that can go wrong will.
That can stay up there. Just give me 1 second. Okay, YouTube crowd, I just have to, you need to relax a little bit. We understand what is going on here. I can see it all. I don't need 35 people messaging me privately. I don't, I'm not trying to be rude here. I love that you guys care and that you're trying to help, but we understand the issues that are going on. I potted things down. Okay, so I know what's going on. We're trying to figure out the audio. I just need a little bit of patience here over the next couple of days as we figure out this system, as we figure out everything. So just give me a little bit of a break here. There's going to be a couple of rough patches tonight, all right? And what confuses me is when I'm working on it and all of a sudden I get a plethora of messages from people all trying to say the same thing but saying it differently, and I'm on that while Cliff is talking or while I'm talking. I'm trying to get a hold of Chuck and explain everything to Chuck. So Chuck is working in my system as well as we speak. So just give me a little bit of a break here, guys. Okay, this is really hard right now because we're trying to do what we need to do. We've already lost 20 minutes on one feed because of it, and there's a lot of stuff going on here, so please be patient, okay? Those who are supposed to message me during the show, you guys can continue, but just I need some R&R here, okay? Thank you. All right. All right, Cliff, we got about 30 seconds, okay?
Take your time, whatever you want.
Thank you. All right.
Only on.
Here we go. Second half hour of Spaced Out Radio is underway tonight. I am your host, Dave Scott, sitting in the captain's chair of SOR headquarters. Thank you so much for joining us. We really do appreciate you taking the time. We want to remind you that if you've missed portions of this show or others, you can check out our free archives by going to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Just do me the favor, hit that subscribe button. Our website is spacedoutradio.com, where we have a plethora of features for you, including rocking out to Bumblefoot and reading up on Captain Shirk's SOR Newswire. Follow us on Twitter Twitter at Spaced Out Radio and on Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show. Tonight we are talking with legendary Sasquatch researcher Cliff Barackman, and he has been all over North America looking for the elusive creature of Sasquatch. Is it real? Is it fake? Is it something science isn't taking too seriously? We're going to find out. Cliff, welcome back. And we're going to get Cliff back here in 1 second here because we are having an apparent Skype issue. And we are going to try again. Oh, the love of great radio. The love of great radio. And that's what we're trying to do here. So give me a second here. We will have Cliff here momentarily. And just got to write down a phone number here. Because sometimes this is what happens. Oh, the love of it. The love of it. We're going to find out here.
Hello.
All right. We got you now. Can you hear me?
All right. It works.
All right, let's see. We're going to run with it here, my friend. We're going to run with it. Cliff, thank you so much for joining us. Obviously, our Skype connection was not working as we had hoped, so we'll do this thing over the phone. And just want to say a big thank you for you coming on the show tonight and making things happen here. We really do appreciate it. Cliff, why do you think this creature is out there? What leads you down that direction? What evidence do you have?
Oh, apparently it's not a Skype issue. The same thing just happened. Did you ask me what I think this creature is?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. What I think, it's what we call a relict hominoid. Okay, a relict is a biological term that means still existing even though they were much more widespread, like still existing in small pockets of the world. Like orangutans are like that because they're very, very rare. They live in a very, very small number of places on the planet in small little pockets, but they used to be much more widespread throughout Southeast Asia. Okay, a hominoid is a fancy pants word that means human-shaped thing. So a relict hominoid means, something that used to be more widespread, like a human ancestor of some sort, that is still living and persisting on to present day. Now, specifically what they are, most people go to the Gigantopithecus explanation, and they might be right. Gigantopithecus blackie was a very large ape. We know for sure it existed. It went extinct, or at least the mainstream science thinks it went extinct about 100,000 years ago. And we know the thing existed because we have 4 or 5 jawbones and a few hundred teeth. And that's it. We don't have anything of the rest of the body, no post-cranial fossils. But it was a really big ape. It was at the right place, Southeast Asia, near the land bridge, at the right time, pretty recently. So maybe Sasquatches are Gigantopithecines. We don't really know because, frankly, we don't know hardly anything about Gigantopithecus, let alone Sasquatch. But, we know a little bit more now. We know that they were in the orangutan line. We know that from proteonic studies that just came out this past year. I think it was 2020, might be 2019. But I think there's another candidate that hasn't been looked at very closely. It was suggested as far back as early 1970s by a guy named Gordon Strassenberg. And I think that the candidate that needs to be more closely looked at is Paranthropus. Paranthropus is an Australopithecine. We all know what Australopithecines are. Perhaps you don't recognize the word, but we know the Lucy skeleton that was unearthed, I believe, in 1974. And Lucy was an Australopithecine, but Australopithecines have 2 main branches. A slender, more gracile form, which is what Lucy was, and that's also what we think later led to our more direct ancestors. And they also had a more robust form, very thick and stocky and very, that kind of thing, which are basically Sasquatches, but smaller. Imagine a Bigfoot that stood only 4 or 5 feet tall. That's basically what a Paranthropus was. And there's 4 or 5 different species of those things. Now, I think that Sasquatches are most likely a Paranthropus that radiated out of Africa and probably went into colder regions. And when animals live in colder regions, something called Bergmann's rule takes over. Bergmann's rule is a biological rule that states an animal that lives in colder climates tend to get bigger than the ones in warmer climates. That's the reason, for example, why black bears in British Columbia tend to be larger on average than black bears in, say, Southern California or Mexico. Bergmann's rule. It has to do with heat retention. But if an animal like a Paranthropus left the tropics of Africa and went into colder regions like the Himalayas and then further north into Siberia, they would eventually, over many generations, tend to grow larger for heat retention purposes. And, it's not really that far of a logical jump from 4 to 5 feet tall to 7 to 8 feet tall. And so I tend to think that these are probably some sort of Paranthropus. But, most people go to the Giganto thing. I'm just dissent on that because of our ignorance of Gigantopithecus. We don't really know what they were. So how can we say what Bigfoots were since we don't know very much about them either?
Okay, so I understand you're a guy with a scientific background, and that's what you're kind of going down the road. There are a lot of people out there, though, who claim to have some sort of supernatural type of experience with this creature, seeing pixelation and then hearing roars, seeing some sort of what's the word I'm looking for? Something strange about this creature. Footprints that just seem to end in snow, and there's no way that I will ever believe, in my extremely minor way of thinking scientifically, that a creature can back up in its own prints and not make a double print. There's a lot of weirdness that surrounds this creature, and many in the scientific community refuse to go down that road. What is your thoughts on that?
Well, that's because scientists have to be evidence-based, okay? And stories from people really are very weak evidence because you don't know the quality of the observer. You don't know how well they can communicate what they have observed. And I find a significant percentage of witnesses have trouble even differentiating between observations and interpretations. I very often, probably 3 out of 5 times in the museum here, when I hear a Bigfoot encounter, interpretations sneak into what they claim to have observed. They say it was the female came off the hillside. It was probably guarding a juvenile up on top, and it was curious about the camp, and it came and snuck around before going off because it didn't want to get caught. When in fact the only observation there is that they heard something walk in camp. Everything else there was, in fact, an interpretation. So scientists don't deal in interpretations at all. They deal in evidence, and evidence is scant in Bigfooting in general, and there's certainly no evidence for the more paranormal things. Now, paranormal people would say, well, that's because that kind of evidence can't be collected, and maybe they're right about that. But at the same time, it might just be faulty observation. And by the way, even though you did break up on me and I didn't hear the entire question, one of the things that did come through that I did hear was about these supposed track lines that go and end in a snowfield. Well, I happen to know a guy named Bob Strain. He's an excellent Bigfooter in California, and a good friend of mine. He had the opportunity to follow one of these trackways one time, and it did indeed go into a meadow, and then it seemed to have ended. But what he did is he got on his hands and knees and looked very, very closely. Turns out that the creature walked there in the middle of the meadow, turned around, and walked out in its own footprints.
I disagree. I wouldn't believe that in a heartbeat. I have friends of mine who have been tracking animals in the forests of British Columbia for years, and there is no way that an animal can do that. I mean, it can walk backwards.
Out in its own footprints?
Well, it can walk out on its own footprints. To be absolutely exact, Cliff. I mean, that's just weird. I mean, I don't see how that can happen at all without creating a double print.
Well, then I guess what the next step would be is if you completely think that evidence is legit, is you need to come up with a hypothesis that is testable. Like, what is the explanation?
Okay.
Do these things evaporate in the thin air? Do they go through portals? How does one test that hypothesis?
That I don't know.
Yeah, those things have been purported for decades. through, in my opinion, sometimes less than reliable observers, of course, but sometimes good observers too. I don't think that people are necessarily lying. Don't get me wrong, but there is no reasonable explanation for it, and bears don't do it, people don't do it, and I've never encountered anything at all that would ever make me think that Sasquatches are paranormal, even though I've been around them a fair number of times. So I guess that's one of those things that I don't think I need to address until I'm face to face with it, really. Just like the glowing balls of light, or them disappearing into thin air, or them going through portals. Like, why would I deal with a problem that I don't really even think exists?
Okay, but science is also the theory of proving or the idea of proving or disproving theory. You cannot eliminate a theory on personal objection.
Yeah, but if the evidence doesn't lead me there, why would I entertain it? I guess would be my question.
Okay. No, and I understand this, and I think this is good discussion, and I hope I'm not cutting out on Skype here.
You are not. No. I hear you loud and clear, and you're not going to offend me with anything you say, because no matter what it is, the truth can withstand the scrutiny.
No, absolutely. And part of my job as a real journalist, not one of these self-titled ones in this field, is to ask questions, because here the way I look at it, okay, I have an experience personally that doesn't add up, but that's irrelevant to today's conversation. It's not about me. It's not about me bringing Cliff Bergmann on or somebody else on saying, you're wrong because I experienced this. And I'm sure you go through that BS all the time. And I feel sorry for people of your education and of your stature of having to do that and defend the scientific aspect of everything. But the one thing that I do notice in this field is people such as yourself and Dr. Jeff Meldrum, you have a lot of pull within the community because of your education, because of your background, because of your scientific experience. And there are a bunch of uneducated researchers out there who hop on the Barackman Meldrum bandwagon and are really investigating opinion rather than scientific method. This is where I have a real issue with people in this field because, I've talked to Jeff Meldrum on this show. I was able to explain my experiences personally to Dr. Bindernagel when he was alive, God rest his soul. Okay, so I understand with where you're going, but there are too many people out there who are not as educationally experienced as you guys to put a complete hypothesis and thesis together to either explain one way or another. And we're conducting a lot of opinion out there, Cliff, pardon me.
You're going to have to say that last part again. I missed the last 4 seconds of that.
All right. We see a lot of people who are idolizing people like you out there.
I don't hear any of this. I'm so sorry. I don't know what's going on, but I don't hear any of this. I apologize.
Yeah. Well, you know what we're going to do here is I'm waiting to talk to. Can you hear me okay? Can you hear me okay?
Oh, I heard. Can you hear me? I heard that part.
Okay. I'm gonna talk to my tech guy here.
Now you're gone. Again, I'm so sorry. I'd love to get at what you're trying to say here, but I have no idea what it is. I'm so sorry.
Yeah. No. Give me 1 second here. Yeah, I'm going to call you from my cell phone, all right? I'm going to call you from my cell phone here, so that way you can hear me.
I wonder if this is happening on YouTube, too. I don't know.
Yeah, no, it's completely it's nothing to do with you. It's obviously my feed here. So, Cliff, I
kind of sound like Charlie Brown's teacher, like 100 miles away.
Yeah. Okay, I'm gonna call you from my cell phone. I'll be right back, okay? Sorry, everyone. I got to fix this audio. This is obviously not going the way that we need it to go. I am not going to have someone like Cliff Barackman on the show and absolutely butcher a show. So I'm going to stop this feed right now. I am sorry, but I'm refusing to have this happen on this program. Our guests take time out of their day. We need to be professional. We need to be very, very. I'm mad right now. I'm very mad right now, and yeah, I can't continue a show, and I hate to sound this, but we have to be better than this, and I'll try him one more time here.
Hello?
All right, can you hear me now?
Hello?
Can you hear me now?
I heard about half of that.
All right, Cliff, I'm going to call you from my cell phone. So bear with me here, okay?
Yeah, I don't hear you. I hear.
Okay, give me a few minutes, guys. Because I can't, there's nothing I can do when a guest can't hear me. So bear with me. What's that phone number? Which computer? Give me 2 seconds. Our YouTube audience, we're about 2 minutes behind on YouTube right now as well. So,
well, there's nothing. If it's a delay like that, we can't do that. That's something that's going on with them. Unless there's a delay in the network.
I don't know. I am a little concerned. Just let me say something to our YouTube crowd, because I mean, I've been in the chair now for 30 seconds and the video is still showing that I'm not in the studio. So are you?
On the YouTube side?
That's on.
Look at it now.
Yeah.
Well, that's a delay that I can't. That's a YouTube delay thing.
Okay. So obviously we are having. Let me just grab this for a second. Let me just grab the mouse for a quick second here. It's funny, right now there is absolutely no delay on the Spreaker side. I don't know why. So it's not even going.
That's okay on the download side. Let's see what the upload is. That's what I want to say. Tell me if the network problem was. It's okay.
Like,
Things a little odd.
it's almost like we've frozen on YouTube, because my image on YouTube right now is an empty chair. I'm going to try and refresh this.
Well, I mean, I see you on the screen.
Well, yeah, but that's on.
YouTube.
Let me just refresh this. Hold on 1 second here. I'm just having to refresh this right now on my end here, because I'm okay. There I am. I don't know why.
Is it current now?
We're on the regular delay right now. It looks like maybe it was just
So YouTube is having some latency issues.
yeah. So YouTube, just do me a favor and just bear with me here, for me and Chuck here for a quick second here, because we are just trying to figure everything out. I have Cliff standing by, so that way if we can quickly figure this out, we're going to get Cliff back on here. Part of my issue here too, Chuck, is if you look at the Spreaker, it's in real time. Okay.
What screen is that on? It's the screen.
Do you want me to bring it down?
No, I'm trying to just jump to that monitor. Yeah, it's super huge to me.
Here.
It's unviewable to me.
How's that? How's that?
It's a little better. Let me see if I can bring it down further, but it's it would be that's a little better for me. I had to change the scale on it. I didn't want to do that because by doing that I've lost the ability to scroll that. Scale. Okay, so that's correct. And I don't know why you don't have the white channel. It says it's mono. So that looks fine.
Yeah, but it's in real time. It's not going through the Eventide.
Okay, so let's find out what's going on here. tried to get it near the computer and it's not. So there's some kind of weird network thing going on. I've tried several times to do it together. It won't let me in.
Well, the Eventide goes through the computer you're on.
Right, but I have to be back to the main computer with the mixer.
Oh, right.
I haven't got that page off. It's not letting me log in.
Right.
So there's definitely some network issues because I can't get in. Let me try it this way. Even for me, there's a big latency delay. That screen.
Right.
So where is that? What monitor is that on? Because I can't see it anymore. I don't know what screen that is.
Which one? What are you seeing? What are you seeing right now?
Well, now I've got the mixture, but I wasn't seeing it earlier.
Okay.
So what are you missing?
Okay. Well, with Skype, we kept on cutting out for Cliff.
That has nothing to do with this. There's not even a gate in here. That's a Skype problem. Because it's all set correctly. There's nothing changing that.
Okay. Well, let me call you from the Skype line to see if I'm cutting out.
Okay.
Okay. So I'll call you from the Skype line. Bear with me, everyone. We are working on this, and thank you, Cliff, for answering questions in our chat room on YouTube right now. I really do appreciate that.
Okay.
All right. How am I sounding to you?
I hear you fine.
Okay. Testing 1 2. Testing 1 2 3 4 5.
Let me see something. Again?
Testing 1 2. Hi, this is Dave Scott of Spaced Out Radio.
Yeah, sounds fine here. Yeah, I hear you fine.
Weird. Oh, I hope that was.
It's totally fine. Now remember, because the Skype problem could be on his end too.
Yeah.
It doesn't necessarily start or originate with you. That's where people get in trouble. They think it's on their end, and a lot of times it's
Right.
90% of the times it's on the far end. And then you start messing with your end, and all of a sudden you find yourself in a pickle because you change all a bunch of settings that you didn't have to change because they had a problem on their end to start with.
Yeah.
So
okay, well,
I'll try round robin.
I'll try Cliff again.
You've done fine. You're loud.
Yeah.
You're nice and loud on this. Maverick, I brought you down just a little bit because I think it was almost,
a
little too loud.
Okay, so I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna do this for a quick second. Okay, you can hear the commercials?
SOR. Our Facebook page is Spaced Out Radio Show. Our archives.
No, I don't hear the commercials.
/Spaced Out Radio.
There you go. I heard that.
Okay, I just want to see if I'm cutting out with the audio coming back here.
This is Amber Beckrud, and I want to invite you to subscribe to our YouTube channel,
Yeah,
where
here's
we
Bob.
store all of
Okay.
the SOR show
Is it
archives
bleeding
for
me
free.
out?
And as an added
Testing,
bonus,
1, 2,
every
3,
2
4,
weeks,
5.
I'm posting
It's a
brand new
little too
content
low.
on Cryptid Tales.
Pardon me?
Where I will get
It's a little too low, but I hear you fine.
Okay.
the stories that go with them.
All right.
Yeah, so
Find
it's
us
not
at
overdriving.
youtube.com
Okay.
/spaced
I'm gonna call
out
Cliff
radio
back.
and check out Cryptid Tales
You got it.
today.
Thanks, bud.
Drop a comment and let me know what you want to hear. See you there.
Spaced Out Radio with Dave Scott. Follow Dave on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio.
Hello.
All right, let's try this.
Spaced Out Radio Show.
Okay.
Welcome back to hour number 2 of Spaced Out Radio tonight. I am your host, Dave Scott, sitting in the captain's chair of SOR headquarters. We welcome you to tonight's show, especially those listening on our terrestrial affiliates around North America and digitally on TalkStream Live and Revolution Radio. You can check out all of our archives for free by going to youtube.com /Spaced Out Radio. Just do me the favor, hit that subscribe button. The Desert Clam apparently has set the password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club. Guy Pure or Guy Pure, I don't know. Whatever it is, Clam sets the password each and every night right here on Spaced Out Radio. Our website is spacedoutradio.com, where we have a plethora of features for you, including rocking out to Bumblefoot and reading up on Captain Shirk's SOR Newswire. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio and on Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show. Tonight we are talking with legendary Sasquatch researcher Cliff Barackman, and we were having a little bit of a debate. We're going to try and continue on here with the show for you guys, because we want to make sure that everything goes the way it's supposed to, especially with these audio issues that we are kind of going through right now as we have revamped the entire studio here. Cliff, thanks for being a trooper with us, man.
Oh, patience is not only a virtue, it's a prerequisite for bigfooting.
Isn't that the truth? You couldn't hit the nail on the head any better than that. Now, right before the break, before I had to check out some audio stuff that was going on here, we were kind of getting into a very deep and I thought a healthy discussion regarding whether or not there is something supernatural about this creature. There's a lot of people who believe that it could be. There's a lot of people who believe, such as yourself, that there is no legible proof to show that it would happen. And anything paranormal, I think we can both agree that it's unprovable. There could be something happening, but it is unprovable. And you as a scientist have to walk a fine line, because you have to go where the evidence takes you. And I can totally respect that in regards to it. But the question that I was asking you right before you were struggling to hear me was in regards to, there's a lot of people out there who trust your word. They trust Dr. Jeff Meldrum. They trust other scientists who have worked in this field. And they have developed their own opinions and theories regarding this creature on the basis of your words. People like you have a lot of power in this field regarding the research. However, what I see as someone who sits on this side of the chair, I see a lot of people conducting opinion instead of science like you are. So how do you draw the line with people who are conducting opinion rather than conducting anything scientific?
Well, a couple of things. Well, first of all, I really am not a scientist. I have no academic credentials really to speak of. I just have a lot of experience, and I am a left brain sort of thinker. I am scientifically minded. But I'm not an academic per se. I mean, I'm lucky to hang out with some academics, and they seem to trust me and like my company and value what I say. And I'm very, very honestly humbled by all that. But I'm not a scientist. I want to make that very, very clear. And on the other side of that, my degree is in music, of all things. I can play guitar. Well, basically, it is my gig, At the end of the day, and being a musician kind of gives me that the right brain sort of permission as well to be like a little, weird on the outside of things, like some musicians are. And I'm definitely an eccentric kind of weirdo at the end of the day. There are paranormal things in this universe. In fact, I'm going to go as far as to say that the universe is not only stranger than you think, it is stranger than you can think. But I just don't think Bigfoot is one of those strange things, because all of the stuff that I have personally observed, and that is from my own experiences in the woods, my visual sighting, the auditory stuff that I've gotten, the footprint tracks, and just the stuff that has crossed my desk. Never once have I been shown anything that would make me think Sasquatches are anything but a perfectly normal animal. People like Bobo, I was out with Bobo one time and we had Bigfoots around, and Bobo said that he saw some sort of blue light sort of thing in the woods. I didn't. I don't know what that was. I didn't see it. And I feel no obligation to explain it really. But I will say this. Bigfoots, I don't think, fall into that category very easily. I think you have to kind of push it. But I also, as I said earlier, there's weird stuff going on in the universe, man. That's weirder than we're able to think, because I think at the end of the day, we're a pretty primitive species. There's a lot going on behind the scenes that we're not privy to, so to speak. These people who say they have Bigfoots in their brain, for example, like their Bigfoots are talking to them and all that sort of stuff. I've spoken to more than my fair share of them, and I think some of them are lying. I think some of them are very, very sincere and are not lying. I don't really have a ready explanation for it, but I did start looking into some stuff because, after 2 or 3 people who you find credible say this sort of stuff, I kind of go, I wonder what that's about, because I've been around Bigfoots. They never talked to me. I don't know what's that. I wish they would, right? But they never have. So I started listening to these people, and sure enough, they kind of walk away with this message of this overarching sort of environmentally friendly, you're screwing up the planet, you got to work together, spread more love sort of message, right? And I noticed that was the same message that people who had near-death experiences were coming back with. And that's also the same message that people who think they're talking to God or angels or aliens and all that sort of stuff, all of those sort of contactees are coming back with the same sort of friendly, hippie-ish kind of message, honestly. And I started wondering, well, if the message is the same, then perhaps the messenger is the same. Maybe we just don't know what's going on. So in one of my interviews with these people, I happened to be talking to this gentleman who thought he was talking to aliens. Coincidentally, he was reading the Whitley Strieber book, Communion, at the time. But, maybe that influenced him in some sort of way. I don't know. But I was talking to this dude, right? And I said, well, and he told me, he said, he asked them, the voice or whatever he had in his head, are you alien? And the thing laughed at him and said, sure, I'm alien. I don't fit on your planet, or something to that effect. But then it went on to say this, whatever doesn't scare you, sure, that's what I am. And I'm kind of wondering if these Bigfoot contactees, if you want to call them that, this paranormal sort of side of things that are claiming Bigfoots are contacting them in their brain, if they're already predisposed to think Bigfoots are around, why wouldn't whatever that is just say it's a Bigfoot and be done with it, But there's no evidence that it's a Bigfoot. I mean, so why would you think that, except that the voice told you that on the other side of the line, so to speak? I'm way open to paranormal things. I just don't think Bigfoot's one of them.
Yeah, but okay, and I apologize because I thought with your reading your bio and everything, I thought you were working in a scientific mind with everything. So
I taught children. The scientific method, and I love the sciences. I was an astronomy and physics major until calculus 2 kicked my butt, and I said I don't want to do that for a living. My God, and then decided to do something a little bit more conducive to being mellow with my time.
Okay, so but you do have to admit, with all the scientific people you hang out with and the theories of the people that you have studied under, with this, conducting opinion is very, very dangerous. And if we're conducting opinion, we're not really conducting scientific research, Cliff.
Right. That's where the evidence comes in. And that's why I don't bother looking into the reports of Bigfoots coming out of UFOs, and because the evidence really isn't there for that. The evidence shows that they conform to the biological expectations of an animal like that.
But that's their diet. But that's your belief, though. That's not.
No, it's not. No, it's not my belief. That's what the evidence says. The evidence is that. And when I interpret the evidence, that's the conclusion that one comes to. It's not a belief, it's the evidence.
Okay. So take First Nations people who have centuries of legends, folklore, whatever you want to call it, in regards to this. How do you poo-poo their history and the statements and the evidence. Granted, they didn't have cameras back then or voice recorders or anything along those lines. But how do you dismiss their stories if we're not willing to look into them?
I don't dismiss them, but with Indigenous people, they have a completely different culture than the dominant European-styled culture that most of us participate in. They have a completely different culture, and they do not separate spiritual versus physical so readily as most other folks in the dominant culture do. And so one culture peering into another, trying to fit their situation into our paradigm, just doesn't work. I know a good number of Native people. I have good friends who are Native people, and they don't all think that. First of all, I want to point that out. I wouldn't want to, stereotype them in that way either. There are some very scientific people in left brain thinkers in the Native community, and I don't want to box them all into any one category. And one tribe versus another has different beliefs as well. But when you live in a culture where there is no clear distinction between the spiritual and the physical, a lot of things get mixed up. I mean, not mixed up like confused, but the separation isn't so clean and easy as we think it is from our dominant European culture that we're coming from. So it's hard to put our culture over theirs and say one or the other. It's not like that. When eating becomes a prayer, like what is that? Is that physical or is that spiritual? Well, animals, to many cultures and many people in these cultures and indigenous communities, the world is alive, and everything from rocks to trees to squirrels have spirits. And I think that is to be respected as a perspective. But that's not what we're dealing with here. That's not the way science works. And it's not to say that they're wrong. I'm not going to tell anybody that their perspective is incorrect, but I'm just saying that that's not where I don't have that culture. I can't speak to it in that way. I don't understand fully how it is integrated into one's lifestyle like they have embodied. And I respect that. And I have a tremendous amount to learn from the Native community as well. But again, I work closely with, there's one Native scientist that I work with down in, he's in Eugene, Oregon, and he and I are working on a recording system to see if we can record infrasound. It's not a blanket statement like that. I don't poo-poo them. I don't write them off. I respect them deeply.
Oh, I don't mean as, and please let me rephrase, because I don't want to make it sound like I was throwing you under the bus there. I'm not saying the culture or anything like that. Okay, and I want to be specific because there may be some people who think, well, Dave, you tried to pull a CNN there and set, or in Fox News and try and set somebody up there. I don't want you to.
Oh, I was on Fox News. This is nothing. I got you. Don't worry about it.
You know what I'm talking about, though. I want to make sure that there is that I ask that with all due respect to not only the culture, because it's not about insulting the culture. It's about questioning, the belief system. Because when it comes down to, like you said, we have a Western European way of thinking. They have a more indigenous way of thinking, which is completely opposite, which I don't believe many of us can fully grasp or fully understand. It's hard to blend the two because you can't dismiss their stories, but you can't prove the stories either.
Well, yeah, but remember, in many of the indigenous stories, coyotes are talking to ravens and things like that. And, are you going to say that, well, coyotes don't talk to ravens? Is that disrespectful to their cultures? No, it's because it's a totally different thing. Let me say it like this. I think perhaps a metaphor is in order, because sometimes I just speak better in metaphor. I'm an artist at heart, right? So to me, science is a wrench in a toolbox. Okay? And that wrench is really, really useful for things that have bolts on them. And biology is one of those things that has a lot of bolts, and you can tighten them and loosen them with that wrench. You can actually get down to nitty-gritty stuff and, and that sort of thing. But there's plenty of other things that the wrench is completely useless for. Things like emotions, love, cultures, oral tradition, etc. Those sort of things the wrench isn't well suited for. Maybe there's other wrenches that'll come closer, and I'm thinking of like the study of folklore, for example, or sociology or anthropology, the study of cultures in general. Like those kinds of wrenches can maybe apply a little bit towards but it's not going to fix the sink. You know what I mean? To me, science is a tool that you can apply to questions you have and see what is true. Because the truth can always withstand the scrutiny, no matter how hard you look at it. falsehoods will fall apart and fade away, but truth will always be there no matter how hard you look at it, no matter how you try to pull it apart and pick it apart. It's always still going to be there, and if you can get down to it, it'll withstand it. And to me, science is a method. It's not a guarded paradigm. It's not a paradigm at all. It's not a way of think. Well, it is a way of thinking in a tool sort of way, but it's not like I believe it and that settles it. It's not a dogma, I think is the right word maybe I'm looking for, but it is a tool that people can use to varying levels of proficiency to get at the truth. And part of that is the evidence that you collect along the way. And that's how I use science, and that's why I think scientifically. I'm an amateur scientist.
And I think that's fair. I do, and I'm loving this debate here because my thing is, all right, in the field that I deal with, which is more outside, I deal more with UFOs. Even though I like a good Bigfoot every now and again. I'm not going to lie, Cliff.
Who doesn't?
I've had my own experiences. I've seen two of the creatures. I've been chased out of an area by them. I mean, hearing the what do they call it? The samurai talk.
Oh, cool! I've never heard that. I'd like to.
Yeah, we got pushed out of the forest, and it's funny because we were just back there in that same area on Sunday trying to make things happen. Damn things don't decide to not answer their tree knocks. Come on. I mean, we're giving some decent tree knocks here, man, and they don't even want to pick up the phone. It's rude of them. Rude. But the point that I'm getting at is, with the way that the scientific versus the supernatural community has really, really divided the way the investigations are going. And trust me, I'm much like you. I don't buy in, and this is a personal opinion, I don't buy into the whole Sasquatch are people too, and they should have the right to vote. I don't buy into that crowd. All right. But I do believe that there is some sort of interesting phenomena happening. Maybe supernatural, maybe not, because of what I have personally experienced. So with that, is there a way to blend the two communities together? Because I think your side has some answers. I think the supernatural side has some answers. The Indigenous obviously have some answers after thousands of years of dealing with this creature. Is there a way to blend that research together to see what is truly happening?
I think the best way to do it for any of us, because really, again, unless you're willing to pull the trigger, none of us are going to be the one to prove the thing, right? So I think the best thing for any of us to do at this point is just faithfully collect data. Data is what it's really all about. And data isn't necessarily, it's not evidence. I mean, if there's patterns in data, then it can be construed as evidence, but those need to be squeezed and caressed out of that data, So yes. I think that any of us who are interested in the subject, if you hear stories, don't just listen to them, write them down and write down things about it, date, location, what the person observed. How long did it happen? What plants did you see out there? What animals did you see out there? What was the moon phase? What was the weather like? What about the temperature? Barometric reading, everybody? That sort of stuff. Because buried in that jumble of numbers and measurements and this and that are patterns that so far very few, if anybody, has squeezed out. Some people have tried. And I'm not a statistician. In fact, I'm not a big fan of statistics in general, really, honestly. But I know that the answers are in there. And for example, Dr. Anna Nakaris, who is from Oxford, she studies one of the other nocturnal primates in the world, the slow loris in Sumatra. I've had really interesting, fascinating conversations with her. And she was asking me questions like, well, how do you know that, Cliff? And I said, well, I mean, from experience. Like, well, can you show me the data? I said, well, no, but I've been out a bunch of times. And she was not good enough. You need to write these things down and show me the pattern. And so I've started doing that myself, trying to eke out the data. Because frankly, I'm not doing a good enough job. I don't practice what I preach sometimes. I wish I did. We all have a long ways to go. And frankly, we're all amateurs at this because there are no professionals. We're all just doing the best job we can to try to figure out what the heck is going on. Mm-hmm. And everybody is allowed to have their perspective on it as long as it holds up to the scrutiny. True. If you can ask some hard questions and the answers don't seem to jibe with what you think, then change what you think. Your mind is easy to change. We're so stubborn nowadays.
I agree with you. But that's where I go back to my original question to you, Cliff, or a statement, pardon me, which is it is very, very difficult to listen to someone who is conducting opinion rather than any sort of scientific method, because the minute you conduct that opinion, you are still conducting what you are trying to find, not what the evidence is telling you. And we have, whether it's on the supernatural side or the primate side, we have too much of that going on, and it causes a lot of internal strife and fighting.
Oh, absolutely. And that's part of the reason I don't really participate in the Bigfoot community very much. Everybody's got an opinion, and, I have mine, and I'm just trying to do what I can and enjoy myself while I got it,
Okay, so as we got about 3 minutes here before we have to go to break at the bottom of the hour, Cliff Barackman is our guest tonight. My next question to you is this. Okay, why haven't we found a body? If this is a primate, okay, I've seen bear. I've been in the forest. I've seen bear skeletons. I've seen coyote skeletons. I've seen, all sorts of animal skeletons. No Bigfoot. Why?
Yeah, I would suggest that you've seen bear skeletons that were shot. See, one doesn't really find naturally dead apex predators like bears and mountain lions and presumably Bigfoots and all that sort of stuff. You just don't really find naturally dead apex predators. Now, an apex predator is an animal that no other animal hunts and feeds upon, right? So the animals that are hunted, like deer and rabbits, they don't get to choose where they die. But it turns out that the hunting animals, bears and mountain lions, they actually get to choose where they die. They just don't know they're doing it at the time. They get sick one day and they squirrel themselves away somewhere because they don't feel well, just like we do, right? We put ourselves to bed. Now, they've hidden themselves away probably in the thickest brush they can. And one day, instead of getting better, they die. So they literally started out this whole thing by hiding their body. Now, within a few hours to a few days at most, scavengers start moving in, start dispersing the body parts here and there. An arm goes 200 yards that way, a leg disappears over the ridge, that kind of thing. So the meat is quickly eaten away. The body parts are dispersed to make it even harder to identify, even if you did run across one. And then the hair is eaten by moths, and the bones are eaten. They are eaten by the most plentiful animal in North America by biomass, which is the deer mouse. Deer mice eat bones. Wood rats eat bones. Porcupines eat bones. Coyotes and deer and elk eat bones. In my museum here, I have 2 photographs of elk eating other deer bones. Now, when you combine, so basically the forest recycles all this stuff pretty quick, man. And when you combine that fact with the fact that there are very, very few Sasquatches, you don't really expect to find remains of any sort. And, to the point, I just got done reading about a year ago now. I read a book called Shadows in the Forest. Is a book on black bears written by black bear biologists. And these guys were badasses. They went into, they studied bears 365 days a year. They had 360 or 80 bears in that study. They did it for 13 years. They would go into the dens, tag them, pull them out, and do all that sort of stuff, take samples, shove them back in. In that 13-year study of over 350 bears, they found one naturally dead bear. And it was in winter, in the den. They don't know what happened to the other bears that naturally died during their study, and these are bear biologists.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so as we only got about, let's just continue this conversation when we get back here, because looking at my clock, we got about 10 seconds, and by the time I ask a question, I'm going to have to say, hey, Cliff, hold on, we're going to commercial break, and then, you don't get to answer, and then I forget what the question was, and it just kind of goes into a real snafu right there. But Cliff Barackman is our guest tonight on Spaced Out Radio. We're going to continue with the Sasquatch talk. Are you on Team Primate or are you on Team Supernatural? Pick your sides right now on Spaced Out Radio. We'll be back. All right, there we go. I get to play with dials now. It's kind of fun. I got to get used to that. Dials are nice. Dials are great. Did I cut out at all during that section there?
No, you sound great. I don't know what you did, but you're back up and running again.
Oh, I don't know what we did. I don't know. It's almost like everything had to get warmed up, maybe stretched out, maybe a few groin stretches or whatever it may be.
Yeah, and the fact that it happened when we're on Skype and on the phone should help kind of narrow down where it was coming from, I think, to some degree.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a great conversation, man. Great conversation. I love it. I
Just
love
talking
it.
Squatch.
You're challenging me. Oh, we don't Squatch here. We don't.
No? Okay.
No. But that's okay. That's okay. I'll let that one slide. You're new.
All right, thank you.
You're new. You're new.
I appreciate that.
Yeah, it's okay.
In general, I need a lot of forgiveness to be hanging out.
I'd give you a hug. I'd give you a hug. I would. Not one of them beard to beard types, but a good manly shoulder hug. Right. Real pat on the back. You can never pat more than twice, though. You know how it goes.
Right.
Yeah. This is great. This is great. Finally starting to relax. Okay, both mics are a little hot. Let's turn them down a little bit. Let's go there. See how that works. I have very technical people in my chat rooms, too, which is kind of cool.
A lot of cooks in the kitchen, huh?
Yeah, they're very helpful. They're very helpful. Hey, that picture I used of yours where it's kind of looking into a valley there, where was that taken?
Australia.
Oh, very nice. Oh, Yowie looking, eh?
Yeah. We're looking for the Yowies at the Blue Mountains of Australia.
Very cool. Very cool. Let's see here. We got about 4 minutes.
Yeah. No hurry.
One of these days I'm going to figure something out. Because a lot of the shows now, or radio stations that we're using now, they'll actually play this show. I'll have to edit the hell out of it later. But they'll actually play tonight's show tomorrow night, sort of thing. So, yeah.
Is this radio as well, or just on YouTube?
No, we're live on YouTube right now. We're live on a couple of digital networks, but we are on 5 or 6 terrestrial stations now.
Oh gosh, good for you.
Five, I believe, and so we're looking at adding a couple of more here, but we're really focusing on the YouTube side right now, and we're gonna be doing a big jump in our YouTube. Once old Davey here finds about 12 minutes to learn how to edit videos, then create some graphics and stuff like that, then we will start doing what we can to kind of push our YouTube channel a little bit more, because the way the mainstream media is going these days, especially through the whole COVID crisis, it's been very, very difficult to try and expand. So,
well, it's made it difficult for everything, really.
Right? Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
I always thought the apocalypse would be a lot more fun than this, I'll tell you.
Tell me about it. I need a good Vegas party, man. Like, I am jonesing for loud music in Vegas. With about 100 different people, and like we were planning earlier this year, right before the whole COVID thing hit. We were like, okay, April 2021, we're gonna have a giant spaced out radio party. No guests, no conference or anything like that. Let's just get a bunch of listeners together and guests together and just party up in Vegas. And then this shit happens.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, it's been crazy. You guys having fires up there right now?
Actually, we lucked out. My area, I had the only smoke I've had was in the last week and a half from the U.S.
Okay.
South of me, in the Okanagan, they got hit with a major forest fire, but that was quickly dealt with. My sister was evacuated for that one. But 2017, 2018 were bad here. But the last 2 years we've been pretty fortunate. We had a lot of rain this year. We had a huge snowfall and a lot of rain, and hopefully we can get another huge snowfall this year. And so that way it keeps that moisture in the ground, and next year we can have hopefully a little bit warmer of a summer. So
yeah, it's been nuts. Where I'm sitting now is about 12 miles away from one of the big fires.
Yeah.
I got evacuated twice last week. Yeah. I had to evacuate the museum.
Right.
And it's like
scary.
Oh, it is. I was going through the museum like, I got to let that burn. No, this is irreplaceable. I'll take this.
Hold on, my friend. Here we go. We'll talk about that coming back.
There.
past the halfway point of Spaced Out Radio tonight. I am your host, Dave Scott, sitting in the captain's chair of SOR headquarters. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us tonight. We want to remind you that if you missed portions of this show or others, check out our free archives by going to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Just do me the favor, hit that subscribe button. Our website is spacedoutradio.com, where we have a plethora of features for you, including rocking out to Bumblefoot and reading up on Captain Shirk's SOR Newswire. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio and on Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show. Tonight we are talking with legendary Bigfoot researcher Cliff Barackman. We're having a good, frank discussion tonight about whether or not Bigfoot is of the supernatural or of the primate variety. Now, Cliff is proudly wearing his Team Primate shirt full of hairs that he's found from Bigfoot. I'm wearing Team Supernatural tonight because that's the way I roll. I love the woo. And somewhere in between, there's an answer. And Cliff, I want to say thank you so much for being an awesome sport and an awesome person on this show. I really do appreciate you taking the time to join us tonight.
Oh, it's my pleasure. I always love talking about Bigfoot, and I love all sorts of questions. Just because I don't agree with something doesn't mean I'm not willing to entertain the possibility and then examine it closely.
Yeah, I mean, I love it, man. I love it. And thank you so much for being really cool, honestly. And you got a fantastic beard. We like to rate good beards around here, my friend, and you got a good one. So keep that beard going.
Thank you. I grew it myself.
Me too. Me too. I didn't grow yours. I grew mine. Anyhow, let's move on here. One of the big things that a lot of outdoors people use is trail cams. Okay? And people have tried to set up, whether it's gifting sites or some sort of offerings for this creature or just put them in the wilderness, and we see strange things happen that shouldn't happen on a trail cam. What is your best understanding of what is happening on these trail cams, Cliff?
Well, I have actually a number of pretty decent photographs of Sasquatches from trail cams. I think it's pretty interesting that everybody says, well, how come there are no pictures? Well, just because you're not aware of them doesn't mean they're not there, right? And I'm not talking about you. I own a Bigfoot museum, and people ask me these questions literally probably every day when we're busy or whatever. But there are trail cam pictures of Sasquatches, and none of them are really good. There's a couple of very good ones, actually. In fact, one particular photograph from western Oklahoma, we invited the woman who got it to be on the show Finding Bigfoot. And we said, hey, this is a great picture. Would you like to be on the show with us? She goes, no, I don't really want the attention. I don't want the community to know and stuff like that. And she got it on her hunting property, a few miles from where she lives. She lives in a single wide trailer with her daughter, single mom, that sort of thing. And so, and she goes, the producer said, well, this is a really good picture. How about if we'll give you more money for licensing the picture, and we'll blur your face and change your voice. No one will ever know it's you. And she goes, no. I don't want to be involved in this. All I want is to be able to hunt my property and not be afraid. And you can't give me that. And so the producers, well, all right, that's the way it goes. And this picture was taken in November of 2012. And nobody beyond me, the investigator that asked me to analyze it, and with the permission of the photograph owner, and the photographer herself, has seen this, has possession of this picture. I've shown it to various people on my phone, but I will never give it out because witnesses are more important than evidence. You need to respect them. So there are excellent photographs out there, but for their own personal reasons, the people choose not to share it. And if I would challenge people to say, well, that just means it's a hoax. Well, really? Hoaxers, to me, from my experience, and I've dealt with a fair number of them, always want attention, and they want, or they want money. They're the ones yelling from the mountaintop, look at my picture, look at my picture. And this woman does not fit that bill very, very easily. So I don't know, but there are game camera pictures of Sasquatches. Why there aren't more? I think that has something to do with how they're deployed, and also the fact that people aren't. Well, frankly, I think trail cameras make a lot of noise. Honestly, it's my hypothesis that Sasquatches are hearing them because other animals are detecting them, oftentimes through scent. Why not hearing? A guy named, he probably doesn't want his name out there, but this guy I know, he's an engineer out in Wisconsin. He actually started listening to game cameras in the ultrasonic frequencies, the frequencies that are too high for people to hear. And sure enough, they all kind of scream. Some of the higher level ones, the more expensive ones, like the Reconyx Hyperfires, they make much less noise. But they all make like this electronic whining whir noise. which might go a long ways towards explaining that scientific paper that was published about 7 years ago about how alpha male coyotes in the coyote packs not only apparently detect game cameras, but they actively avoid them. And that's a coyote, man. I know coyotes are smart and stuff, but they don't hold a candle to primates. So if they can do that, I wonder what Bigfoots can do.
Well, I mean, that's the fact that, you said something very interesting earlier, too, that you don't believe there is a large population of these. And I remember when I had Dr. Jeff Meldrum on the show, probably 8-9 months ago, he stated that he's actually been able to, through the footprints, been able to watch almost like a family pack of these, including a small Sasquatch, a childlike Sasquatch, grow into a bigger animal due to the lines on the foot. So when you are investigating this, do you think there is a lot of creatures here in North America? Do you think there's separate species of them out there?
I don't think there are very many of them in general, and I used to think there were a lot more. When I was out there having experiences and, Bigfooting around and stuff, I thought there were a lot more. I was probably misidentifying some of the stuff I heard, certainly. But it was really the footprint evidence that kind of made me rein in my estimate a little bit, because there are several locations throughout the country, the Olympic Peninsula, the Blue Mountains of Oregon, Kentucky right now, in Northern California, where we have a number of footprints that seem to depict the same individual. So we can kind of track where that individual goes during certain time of the year and that sort of thing. So like the Blue Mountain evidence, for example, compiled by Paul Freeman and Wes Summerlin and Dar Addington and Bill Lowry and those guys. There's probably about 60 footprint casts, maybe 80. And in my best guess, that represents about 5 or 6 individuals. So that kind of like maybe kind of downgrade my estimate of the population. Then they would have to be pretty rare. Otherwise, people would be seeing them more. So I tend to think that people are seeing the same ones that kind of live at the place where humans and Sasquatches might most likely coincide at the same time. There are probably plenty of Sasquatches, especially in Canada, that have never been observed by any human. But the ones in my neighborhood, like the ones at a Bull Run watershed over here, where I live, I imagine people are seeing the same ones when they do see one. So.
Okay, so do you think there's more on the West Coast rather than the East Coast because the trees are bigger, there's more nature, there's more fauna, potentially more food, considering the population?
Yeah, it's a habitat thing. Wherever there's enough food, water, and cover, I think that there would be like a saturation point of how many Bigfoots can live there. And where you'd have more of the habitat, you'd certainly have more of the Sasquatches. But there are plenty of them in Kentucky and Tennessee and places like that as well. But I think there's probably more in British Columbia than any other one place. But then again, British Columbia is so big, so that just makes sense.
Yeah, but that's the thing. Like, when you look at it, I mean, what are the chances of somebody actually seeing one? Because the majority of people out there, maybe even yourself, Cliff, they're not looking for it. It just happens.
Yeah, the chances are very low. I mean, astronomical, really. But, astronomical things do happen. I mean, that lady in the 1950s was actually hit by a meteorite, for example. That the chances of that happen are pretty low, but weird things do happen. And people do see Sasquatches. The most recent sighting report I'm aware of, today is what? I don't even know what the date is. Monday? It's a Monday. So this Thursday, it'll be 3 weeks ago, this Thursday. At the museum here, we get about 3 to 5 sighting reports a week. But about once a month, something comes in that is very fresh. Those other sighting reports could have happened like 10 or 20 years ago. But about once a month, we're getting something that happened within the last 2 or 3 days, usually. That happened in June, that happened in July, it happened in August. And of course, we were closed because of the plague for a couple months before that, but it was also happening last winter as well. So people are seeing them with some frequency. And certainly I don't hear about everything that everybody sees. I probably hear about 1% of the things that are out there. So I don't know. You're asking good questions, and I'm afraid I don't have good answers for them.
Well, I mean, at least you're taking the time to give it a try. I mean, that's a big thing. You know what I have noticed? I'm curious about your opinion on this too. I don't know what it's like in the United States, but up here in Canada, there has been record sales over the last 4 or 5 months in truck sales, in RV sales. People going out in the wilderness, because a lot of Canadians like to travel around the world and into the United States for holidays. We haven't been able to do that with the borders being closed. And I'm curious if you think that the main reason why maybe we're getting more reports is due to the virus this year, we are having more of we're getting back to those old school holidays where we went camping out in the forest, maybe did a little fishing and hiking and getting some fresh air rather than going to someplace exotic or traveling to Disneyland or Disney World or places like that, or the beaches in Mexico. This is where I'm thinking, do you think our sightings have increased because of that?
I'm not so sure they've increased, honestly, because it seems to be about the same as last year at this point. Again, about once a month, something real fresh comes to me. But certainly with more people camping and staying close to home, as you were mentioning, I'm hoping that it will yield more sightings. I was also hoping these wildfires, and I was talking to you during the break that the closest wildfire to where I'm sitting at this very moment is about 12 miles away. I was hoping that the wildfires might push around the wildlife a bit and we might see or have a little uptick in sightings, but that hasn't been proven to be true so far. So I don't know. I'm just kind of sitting around and waiting to see what comes to me at this point.
Do you think? Sorry, please.
No. The most recent sighting we had, the one that's about 3 weeks ago, that was in a very rural area, but yet it was a place where people have between 5 and say 20 acres. So there's people around. It was seen crossing the road between two properties at 4:30 in the morning a couple weeks ago. The one that was in July, on July 18th, 2020, was up on Zigzag Mountain. Some guy who was training his horse for long distance races. He rides an electric bicycle, and his wife rides a horse. And they saw one out there in July, and that's about, I don't know, about 15 miles from where I'm sitting right now, the other direction. But these people are out there anyway. The one in June was a lady driving. So again, to have a sighting report is kind of interesting. You have to have, it's so obvious too, but a lot of people don't consider it. You have to have a place where a Sasquatch is and a place where a person is and someone to tell about it. Otherwise, you never hear about it.
Okay, so, getting back to the whole idea that people are spending more time in nature and people are spending more time with getting to know themselves and their families again, and maybe becoming one with, the fact that they've just made a 20-year investment in an RV or something like that, and took the silly financing on it, but we can laugh and point fingers at them later. But in regards to the fact that, due to your television show, due to other television shows, people are taking a keener interest in maybe taking a look for this. So for the amateurs out there, if they're out there looking for this creature along the logging roads of Washington State or along wherever nature takes them, what's your advice to them?
I've got several pieces of advice. Number one, go for another reason. Go just to camp. Go out to where you're going just to fish. Go out there just to hike. Go there for mushroom picking, whatever you're into. Go hunting, whatever it is, because most of the time Bigfoots don't show up. Frankly, to be very honest with you. So go for another reason, because if you just go for Bigfoot, you're going to come back disappointed more often than not. But if you go for fishing, well, you might not catch anything, but darn it, you went fishing, and that was cool. If you go camping with your family, well, you're going to have a good time. So that's my first recommendation, is go for another reason, because the vast majority of people who actually see these things are doing something else. They're not looking for Bigfoots. Second, now, to get really down to the nitty-gritty side, which I know is where you're going anyway, but I had to say that other thing first because it's the best advice I can give. Go to where someone had seen one previously. There's this idea that we're kind of working with in Bigfoot land here, the Bigfoot researchers, is that Bigfoots, just like all the other animals, are creatures of habit, and they go to the same places again and again, probably for the same reason. As long as an area hasn't been significantly changed, like paved or something like that, then the Sasquatches will probably still be there, and they'll probably still be there at the same time of year they were seen before. So even if a Sasquatch had been seen twice in like a 5-mile area, for Bigfooting, that's a pretty good cluster, for the most part. It's not just some random road crossing where it's going to be, seen at this one spot occasionally as it moves from one spot, point A to point B. But if it's seen in in 2 or 3 sighting reports from like a 5-mile area, that's a really good area to go check out. And then you go there, you make some noise. You don't have to make whoops and knocks and calls. You can just go there and play Metallica real loud or something on your radio. Do something out of the ordinary to draw their attention. And being as intelligent as they are, they're probably very curious, and they might come in to take a look. You may never know it, but they just might do it anyway.
What are we looking for, though? Like around the forests, around our atmosphere. Should we be listening for the fact that the birds have gone silent? Should we be, waiting for that hair on the back of our neck to stand up because the human body is very good at predicting when things are happening that our mind may not be catching up to at that point?
I think look for anything out of the ordinary, essentially. If you do feel creepy, like this, maybe you feel like being watched. That's a possibility. Maybe the woods are just strangely quiet for some reason, because Sasquatches, I think, are strongly dependent on their sense of hearing. I think that they don't necessarily have to look at you to know what you're doing. They can just listen at you, if that's the right word, the preposition for that. Yeah, sure, there might be footprints. Maybe you'll see an animal or something, but that's highly doubtful. Most likely, you'll hear some strange noises you can't identify. Maybe a tree will be pushed down. Maybe you'll hear some knocks or some whoops out there in the woods. Maybe you'll be lucky and hear things, jibber jabbering back and forth, like whispering to another or something like that. But yeah, most likely you won't hear anything at all, either because A, there's not a Bigfoot there, or B, they're in ninja mode and they don't make a lot of mistakes. But again, go for another reason and enjoy yourself in the woods, because being in the woods is good for your soul, if nothing else. And then see what happens. Just see what happens. Maybe you do feel something. Maybe you see something. Maybe you hear. Maybe you smell something. Just kind of tune in with all your senses and see what you can pick up.
We've got about 6 minutes here before we got to go to break at the top of the hour. Cliff Bergmann is our guest tonight on Spaced Out Radio. What about your experience? What was it like when you saw your first one?
Well, I've only seen one, and it wasn't a good sighting. And I'm a very honest person. I'll tell you, there's a slight possibility that it wasn't a Bigfoot. Although I strongly think it was. We were actually filming Finding Bigfoot at the time. It was our very first night investigation during our first season. Actually, we're filming the North Carolina episode. And we were on break. And at that time, we were kind of butting heads with the production company. Because as I mentioned earlier, sometimes production companies, try to push you into being less than truthful. We weren't having it because we're Bigfooters, true and true. And once the show went away, we're still Bigfooting. It's what we do. We're not going to sacrifice our reputation for, some show, basically. And actually, in the long run, we made a far better show because of it, I want to add. Animal Planet stepped in, and they stopped pressuring us and just let us do what we do. And I think we made a pretty good show. But anyway, we're butting heads because they weren't getting what they needed for, exciting, compelling television from us. And we weren't being allowed to do Bigfoot stuff because of the handcuffs that television essentially is when you're out there in the dark. We were on break. The cast members were kind of milling about, kind of lamenting our situation, and the producers were probably talking like, what are we going to do with these jerks who are not cooperating, over huddling on this meeting. And Moneymaker sees something on the hill, and in the very beginning of the show where he goes, there's something on the hill. He's talking about the thing that I saw, right? And he was looking at a human-shaped figure through a thermal imager that was standing about 70 yards up on the hill. And Matt thought it was a person spying on us, But first of all, it was 2 o'clock in the morning. We were 2 miles off trail at a place no one knew we were going to be, with a long history of both visual observations of Sasquatches and other things like rock throwings and whoops and other audio sort of clues that they were there. And this thing was standing on the opposing hillside, like I said, about 70 yards away in the dark, just staring at us, basically. And Matt's yelling. Matt, he goes, Cliff, is that you? I said, no, Matt, I don't know what you're talking about, man. Just leave me alone. Bobo, is that you? Renee said, no, Matt, we're all here, man. Relax. And he goes, there's somebody up there. And then the thing starts walking. And I haven't even seen this yet, by the way. But the thing starts walking, and Matt yells, identify yourself, And the thing stops, just dead in its tracks on one leg, just standing there in mid-stride for 5 or 8 seconds or something like that. And Matt goes, oh, you seem to have, he yells at it or something. It starts walking again, and that's when I turn my thermal imager over on it. Now, thermal imagers don't see light. They see heat. So any animal, like a mammal, kind of glows against the background, because we're radiating heat. What I saw was a human-shaped figure. Okay, so Sasquatch or human. That's it. That's the only options. But it was one color, head to toe. Okay, and mind you, this was February in the mountains of North Carolina. We all had our big puffy jackets on and stuff. So this thing being one color head to toe is significant, because wearing clothing like puffy jackets, it keeps your heat in. And so you'd be able to see a differentiation between the top and the bottoms, because where heat is escaping your clothing, you would be a different color than you were like where heat was being kept in by your jacket or your hat or whatever. Like that's where your ski pants or whatever you're wearing, right? But this was one color head to toe, meaning to me that heat was radiating uniformly out. So it probably wasn't wearing clothing. It also walked in a very peculiar manner. From the waist up, it appeared like you know how like you get in a shallow end of a swimming pool, and when you're walking, you kind of use your hands to scoop out in front of you like you're swimming along.
Yes.
That's what this thing's arms were doing, in a strange sort of scoopy motion. And the legs were also moving in a very peculiar manner, not like Patty from the Patterson-Gimlin film, but almost like it was riding a bike, like this weird circular sort of way it was moving. I've never seen anything like it, and I still haven't. But that's the way this thing was moving, and it was navigating the wooded hillside without a light at a pretty good clip. Now, Matt, being convinced this was somebody spying on us, he took off after it. He was going to go do, I don't know what he was going to do, but he was going after it. And whatever this was, I watched it for about 8 or 9 seconds, maybe 7 or 8 seconds, maybe. And it just was zip, zip, zip through the woods without a light, no problem. Matt had a night vision in one eye and a thermal in the other, and he was stumbling and doing his best to stay afoot and going after this thing. But whatever it was quickly outpaced Matt and just quickly and silently went over the hill. Now, Matt never saw it again. I tried to flank it. I never saw it again. And then we all got back, and then we yelled at Matt. You can see that on the episode itself. And then about 45 minutes later, we got a big vocalization off that same hillside. Something came and went quite loudly at us. So, yeah, maybe it was a person. I mean, I'm way open to that because I'm an honest person. I want to tell everybody the truth. Maybe it was a person. But it sure seems like the odds are against it being a person. Again, 2 miles off trail, 2 o'clock in the morning, navigating a wooded hillside without a light, one color head to toe and a thermal imager. Matt never got close to it, and we got vocalizations. I'm inclined to think that was a Sasquatch, but I will never know.
My sighting happened in 2013, where me and a friend were within 100 feet of 2 of them. And I think there was a third there.
Nice. How close were you?
Within 100 feet.
Oh, yeah. Okay, so
Yeah.
I thought you and your friend were within 100 feet of each other. My mistake.
No. We were probably 4 feet apart.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Very good. And they were both standing together?
No, the one was standing right about noon. You know how they like to hide behind trees in the shadows and then peer out at you?
Sure.
We had that. And then as we were getting ready to leave, turn down the trail, I turn and I look because I saw a tree branch shaking. And something was shaking the tree branch, which makes me think there was 3 of them there. But the second one, so if the first guy behind the tree was at noon, this guy's at about 1:30 and about 75 feet away, 85 feet away, and I got a full right side and back profile of this big thing, and it was awesome. Awesome.
Were they about the same size?
The one behind the tree looked smaller.
Would you put a number on that maybe? Like, what do you think, 6 feet, 7 feet?
The one that I saw, probably 7.5, 7 to 8.
And the other one?
Hard to tell.
Hard to tell, okay.
Hard to tell. Number 24. You wanted a number 24 because that's my birthday. So let's leave it at that. Let's continue on. We have Matt Moneymaker's good friend, Cliff Barackman, here on Spaced Out Radio. We are talking Sasquatch. We have Cliff for another half an hour tonight on the Mighty SOR. So stay tuned. More Bigfoot talk coming up in hour 3 of Spaced Out Radio. I always got to wait for the music to end.
No problem.
Yeah, now we're at commercial here. It's kind of fun playing with the dials. Yay.
It's like an analog synth versus a digital one.
Back when I started in my radio career, we actually used the pots. So these big dials that were probably 2 inches in diameter, and, you'd twist them and you'd have 7 of them in front of you, and everything from bass to treble to volume, and it was crazy back then. Crazy.
I love a good knob, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do. I'm a musician, right? So I have a Pro Tools system on my computer, and I just don't like the digital version of doing things. I want something in my hand I can manipulate like that, and it's I just don't like the pushing a button until the number goes to 7 or something. It just doesn't do it for me.
Yeah. Yes, we do know that YouTube does not have commercials. Ron. I just got to figure out the whole edit. I can edit audio. I love editing audio. The stuff you can do with it. I'm not the best at it, but I have a lot of fun with it.
Mm-hmm. It's the video stuff that I have to learn. Oh. Well, start now, and it'll take you the rest of your life to get mediocre at it.
Yeah, tell me about it. Well, the fact is, like when I went to broadcasting school, I have it in my head. I know what I want to see, but these programs have become so more than basic. You have to have a degree in physics in order to try and figure out how to use some of these programs. And yes, I'm being overly exaggerating there, but
no, I get it. Too much, Keep it simple, silly, or stupid, or whoever you're talking to.
Yeah. So that's kind of what. That's kind of one of the things that I'm trying to figure out here.
Yeah, I just hired a gentleman for the museum. His name's Connor, a good, solid Bigfooter, and he knows film editing really well. So We're developing a museum membership and stuff, and we're going to be doing twice a month, producing a small, 5 to 8 minute videos about, the on-site field investigations that we do, or a deep dive in a piece of evidence, or something like that, And I'm just so thankful to have someone who not only knows how to do it, but actually enjoys doing it. Because I'm spread so thinly nowadays. I just don't know if I'd ever be able to get that off the ground without him.
Tell me about it.
Yeah, it's insane.
Yeah, I would probably have the YouTube side of things set up where I wanted if I didn't have my daytime job that I needed to work at, 'cause that's the one that kind of pays my bills.
Sure.
And I don't know about you, but I kind of like a roof over my head and food on my table.
I prefer it.
Yeah, it makes me feel pretty good. So with that's where I'm kind of at the whole aspect of people are like, when is this coming? Soon. Well, what's soon? I don't know what soon is, because my soon is much different than your soon.
Mm-hmm.
I'd like it to be like yesterday, but I can't be.
Yeah. Being a public figure is not easy, man. Everybody's clawing at you for something,
Yeah. Yep. I know that feeling. But, for the most part, 99% of the people out there are good.
Oh, yeah. Fantastic, really. And really, that's true of everybody. Like, most people are just fantastic, and there's a few people that perhaps missed a few lessons when they were growing up about various things that they still have to work on. But
yeah, I hear you there. So, we've got about 2.5 minutes here.
Okay.
2.5 minutes.
Well, what do you do for your day job?
Oh, I work in financing. That's usually about as specific as I get while I'm on the public side of things.
Gotcha. Close enough.
Yeah. I like to. It's funny because I took my education because I hated numbers.
There you go.
I can say without remorse that I work with numbers on a daily basis, and I still have not used algebra.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, that's funny.
Yes.
I look for Bigfoot for a living, and I use algebra all the time.
Yes. No, I work with numbers, and I still don't use algebra.
Mm-hmm.
I use decimals. I got the decimals though. Don't use fractions.
Yeah, most of my stuff's ratios and all that jazz, but. Like when I get a photograph of a Sasquatch or something, and I get a comparison photograph, just by counting some pixels and doing some simple ratios and algebra, you can find out how big the thing is, but within a reasonable margin of error, so that's the kind of stuff I use it for.
All right, my friend, we got about 1 minute.
Copy.
40 seconds. Can even pot that up a little bit so people can hear. Look at that. Look at that. All right, final commercial.
The Moose Vancouver is where you want to be when visiting Canada's west coast. Open until 2 a.m. nightly, the Moose cranks up the rock while serving some of the best rated food in the city. The menu starts at $6.95. Like hardly anywhere else in Vancouver, when the Moose is right there. Get your horns up and rock with the Moose.
All right, here we go, boss.
If you'd like to connect with us, head to spacedoutradio.com for all your latest show info. Now, back to Dave Scott and SOR.
Third and final hour of Spaced Out Radio is underway tonight. I am your host, Dave Scott. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us tonight. We really do appreciate it. We want to remind you that you can listen to all of our archives for free by going to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Just do me the favor, hit that subscribe button. Our website is spacedoutradio.com, where we have a plethora of features for you, including rocking out to Bumblefoot and reading up on Captain Shirk's SOR Newswire. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio and on Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show. The Desert Clam has set the password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club. I don't even know how to pronounce this. Guipure? Guipure? Is that it? I don't know. But the Clam stumped me with the password tonight, as he does every night on this mighty SOR. Let's get into some Bigfoot, shall we? Let's do this thing. Cliff Barackman is our guest tonight. We've been discussing his sighting that he had while shooting the series Finding Bigfoot. And you know what? This has been a great conversation tonight. Really has been. Thank you all for joining us. Cliff, welcome back.
Thanks for having me.
Do you think we're at a point where we're either going to prove aliens first or Bigfoot?
Man, it's neck and neck, isn't it? I mean, with everything that's been being released from the feds and all that jazz lately. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, Bigfoot can happen any day. That's the thing. You can wake up in the morning and find out somebody shot one or a car hit one or something like that. I mean, it could happen literally any day, and I suppose that's true of aliens as well. Yeah, I don't know. That's a good question. I can't wait to see what the answer is.
What is your favorite Bigfoot story out there that you have heard over the years? Mine would have to be a toss-up between the incident, if it's true or not, it's still a great story, is the incident at Mount St. Helens, where the hunters were kind of tortured in their cabin all night. And then that of, and why is his name passing my head, where he was kidnapped here in British Columbia. And
Albert Ostman.
Albert Ostman, that's right. Those would be my toss-up for two. How about for you? Do you have a favorite Sasquatch story?
Well, you know, I have a couple of them, and partly because I had something to do with a couple of them. Like what you were referring to with the hunters, they're actually miners. So that's the Ape Canyon story at Mount St. Helens. Yeah, these miners had a claim up at a place and at this valley that was later called Ape Canyon because of this particular incident. They saw one of these things, and actually they found footprints. They thought that was weird. They saw one of these things and took a shot at it, which is probably a mistake, you know, because what happened that night is that they attacked the cabin. And they were throwing rocks at the outside of the cabin. They're banging on the outside of the cabin. And the newspaper reporter from the Oregonian, actually, here in Portland, Oregon, went up there a couple days afterwards with one or two of the miners, and he noted where one was trying to dig underneath the foundations of the cabin. I love that story, and it's because, you know, when I was young, watching In Search Of, or one of those documentaries, or schlockumentaries as I call them, they did a reenactment of that, you know, and you can see the things throwing rocks, and it just scared the hell out of me as like a 7 or 8 year old little boy, right? So I've always loved that one, and I never dreamt that I'd actually get to go to the location, but I did. Back in 2000, I want to say 17, I believe. I have a hard time with dates. My sense of time is a little elastic. But a real good friend of mine, a guy named Mark Marcel, who lives out in Washington. He owns the West Point Aquarium, actually. He, for some reason, isn't even a Bigfooter, but he, for some reason, became interested in the story. And over the next, I think, 8 or 10 years, tracked down the location of the cabin, which had been lost to time. No one seemed to know where it was. And, with the eruption and everything in 1980 at Mount St. Helens, we just assumed that it was lost. But Mark actually went out and he found it. The cabin it was raised, of course, but it was behind Pumice Butte, which is a landmark on Mount St. Helens. And Pumice Butte deflected the lava flow around it. Like it kind of washed up on Pumice Butte, then went around the sides, and therefore spared the cabin. And the cabin itself was knocked down, but the foundations were still there, and they're buried under about a foot of ash and dust and whatnot. And Mark is a professional surveyor. So actually, he went out with a metal detector, and he was nosing around. And he started finding telltale signs of mining, like baling wire and some broken saws and that sort of stuff, a spoon at one point. And he eventually found these big logs that he discerned were the foundations of the cabin. He got a couple of nails out of them. Somebody was an expert in antique nails. He came out and says, "Oh, those are the nails they used in that part of the country in the 1920s." And then he invited me up there to go verify it. And so I actually got to dig out with my own hands, just around some of the foundational logs of the cabin. I found a nail myself, for example, and it's just like, what an amazing experience to do a little, rogue archaeology, digging around in the tangle of vine maple, digging up something that, that I saw on TV back in 1978 or something like that. So Ape Canyon holds a very near and dear spot in my heart. So I'd probably say that one.
What about the Albert Ostman story? If we look at the history of that story, where he was kidnapped and taken for a number of days, and thanks to some chewing snuff, he was able to get away. I mean, this is, Bigfoot apparently, don't hand him a joint, don't hand him tobacco snuff, because you don't like that. When you hear a story like that, how much belief do we put into that? Because, I mean, that's where it's almost crossing the line when they're kidnapping people. Yeah,
and that's a problem, actually. Because you listen to it, he got picked up, and he thinks that he was brought in to try to mate with the daughter and all these other things that sound pretty outrageous. And I've always eyed that story with a good dose of skepticism. But there are other things in there that are pretty interesting. The anatomy that he describes is pretty interesting. I like that he said that the bottom of the feet kind of looked like the bottom of dog's feet. I thought that's interesting for another reason. But at the end of the day, the what he said about where he went in and where he came out doesn't match the geography of the area. So something is wrong with that story. Maybe the whole thing's a lie. We don't really know. He did sign an affidavit that said it's true, so he could have been in legal trouble or whatever. He's dead now, so there's no legal trouble there. But the geography is incorrect. Like the mountain, it escapes me off the top of my head. Which one he saw on the way out, like that he couldn't have seen that one. It wasn't there. And I think it was the Toba Inlet, if I remember right, where he came out, couldn't have been reached in that amount of time. And so there's some geographical problems with his story. So we kind of have to eye that one with a good dose of skepticism. But no matter what, it's a good yarn, and I sure love it. Current stories. Are there any current ones that we could really lean on? Oh, current. What do you consider current? Let's say the last 10 years. Last 10 years. Yeah, there's a lot of really good ones, and there's some evidence that goes with it. There's a photograph, for example, from New Mexico that I find very compelling. The thing actually, I don't know why, but the thing is carrying this log. It's about 10 or 12 feet long. It looks like, who knows how big the thing is. It was taken by a security guard in New Mexico at a place by Upper Fruitland, Farmington area, Four Corners kind of in that area. And I know some of the people down there. A good friend of mine is a Navajo woman named Brenda Harris, who's an excellent investigator down there. We just had her on, I just had a conversation with her a couple weeks ago, actually. But she's the one that kind of got this picture out there. In this particular area, the Navajo reservation, it's rather deserty, and the Bigfoots that are there are down in the San Juan River. But it's a reservation, so there's frankly a lot of poverty, So on the upper, like on the plateaus above the river, the tribe has started farming up there to supply food to the tribal members. So they irrigate it, and they grow melons and cucumbers and all that sort of stuff, right? And apparently they hire security guards to keep the people from stealing the crops. Well, one of these security guards saw the Sasquatch walking along the flank of a hill there and snapped a picture with her flip phone and then ran away. Okay. Now, I was there a few years ago doing another Sasquatch investigation, and I didn't speak to the photographer, but I did speak to this person's colleagues, a number of other people, men and women who are security guards. And they had the hilarious stuff to say. They said, yeah, Cliff, I mean, we are hired to keep the people out. We don't know what to do about the Bigfoots. So I like stuff like that, like really down home, very nitty gritty sort of stories. Is like, yeah, they're here. Yeah, they steal the food. We don't know what to do about it. And that's what I like. They're really more mundane. You know, they're not like, you know, surfing in on a UFO and then like, you know, pulling off people's wigs and going off into the sunset or something. They're just very mundane, sort of very typical stories about what you'd expect from a smart animal that doesn't care. So those are my favorite.
Looking at this creature, I mean, when you get a creature that's anywhere from, you know, adult size, anywhere from, say, 300 to 1,000 plus pounds, that's a lot of intake of food outside of just berries and fauna. What do you think this creature is feeding on?
I think it has a very wide diet. I think that the diet most strongly resembles that of the black or grizzly bear. And probably a lot, very, very similar. And this is based on what I've heard them going after, as well as talking to indigenous people. They say that their diets strongly resemble that of pre-white contact native people, except without the technology of fire. You know, and considering their large size, that would give them an advantage as well, because they probably have like an elongated intestinal tract, like an elk has. So they're very likely able to digest some rather fibrous, low nutrition foods because of that's just the size of their intestinal tract. You know, like elk are a good example. Deer and elk have very different diets. Deer have to eat the highly nutritious green stuff that pops up along, you know, in meadows and roadsides and power line cuts and all that sort of stuff, where elk can forage underneath the forest canopy because they can extract the nutrients from the plants from there. And I think Sasquatches are like that as well. But I think a very large portion of Sasquatch diet are small mammals, like rodents and raccoons and things like that. Almost anything they can catch. Frogs, also. I know frogs aren't mammals, but you get what I'm saying. I think they would prefer to eat deer, but I think deer might be a little hard to get, but not too hard, because they certainly have been seen killing them and eating them and carrying them around and that sort of stuff. So they get them somehow. But I think that they eat darn near anything, really. Like the ultimate omnivore. I also think that's why they're seen along roadsides a lot. Is they're probably eating, roadkill. Yeah, they've been seen doing it, which is also, might I go back to a previous paragraph here, one of my arguments against them being some sort of paranormal thing. Like if they are UFO riding, shapeshifting, interdimensional stuff, things, whatever they are, why are they eating roadkill? You know, can't they do better?
Well, there is a theory, too, that there could be two separate sets of creatures. I know someone who believes that there is, that there is the supernatural type, but that there also is a land-based creature here that has, that is quite the hominid, almost like a relative of the Gigantopithecus. So, I mean, the problem is we just don't know. We
really don't know. No.
And that's the issue.
Yeah, and you did ask me earlier, I don't think I addressed it, like if there's more than one species in North America. I'm inclined to think not, and that's based on the footprint evidence and the handprint evidence and that sort of thing, because they're all internally congruent. They show the differences between humans and Sasquatches, but like they're all congruent to the Sasquatch model, no matter where they're obtained. The people who say there are more than one species, they always point to behaviors and hair coloration, but that doesn't make a new species. I mean, look at our species, for example. There's a huge genetic diversity. And Sasquatches having a long lifespan, like all the other great ape species, including humans, and a low birth rate, well, that's the recipe for a wide genetic diversity. So I don't think that the differences that these people are pointing to is enough to make it a new species itself. And my friend Ron Moorhead, who you may have had on the show, like he does the Sierra sounds and the jibber jabber sort of samurai chatter. He's the guy that recorded that.
Yeah, he'll be coming up here, I believe, in October.
Oh, I love the man. I just had I did a conference with him and Scott Nelson just a few weeks ago. Love the man. We disagree, but I just love the man. He was saying that there could be a couple different types of these things, so he's wide open to that. I'm a little harder to convince. I don't think that the physical differences are there to warrant a different species here in North America, but I could be wrong about that, and I hope I am.
Well, here's where I stand on that, if you don't mind. In talking to people, I mean, it seems like this creature that seems to run through the bayous of New Orleans and eastern Texas into Louisiana and right through to Florida. It seems to be a more aggressive creature, a smaller creature. Pissed off probably because it's having to deal with alligators and water moccasins all the time. I don't know. But up here on this side, where I am in BC, Washington State, even Oregon, it seems to be a little bit more docile of what people are experiencing.
Well, yeah, that's behavior, though, and the behavior isn't enough to warrant a new species because they have to look at the pressures that are upon them. Now in a lot of places, like Arkansas and places like that, and like Boggy Creek and all, there's plenty of land for them. In British Columbia, there's way more than enough land for them, right? So maybe this is a matter of just different human pressures on them. And as far as them being smaller, that may or may not be true. I know that there's some 8.5 footers in Kentucky, and that's pretty humid and jungly like for a lot of the year. But if they are smaller, that could be attributed to Bergmann's rule, which I mentioned earlier when I was going on that long rant about Paranthropus. That Bergmann's rule is a thing that animals that live in colder climates get bigger. So if they are in the more tropical sort of Floridian climates, maybe they are slightly smaller. But black bears are the same species, whether you're talking about the ones in Mexico or talking about the ones in Alaska. And the ones in Alaska are bigger.
No, that's very true. That's very true. Like even like where I live, the moose population here, the moose that we get here, you go 300-400 miles north of where I am, and the moose are almost double the size.
Right, Bergmann's rule.
Yeah, it's interesting, very interesting. Cliff, what do you want to see accomplished with this type of research? Is it about proving the existence of a creature, or is it about just getting your own peace of mind?
Neither, actually, at this point in the game. It's about educating the public so they're not treated as monsters when the discovery does happen. For example, my mom was born in like 1942, and when she grew up watching the monster movies, the black and white monster movies, gorillas were the bad guys. Gorillas were the monsters. And my mom she probably part of the reason I look into Bigfoots now. She scarred me for life. She goes, don't let the gorillas under the bed get you. And it scared the heck out of me, right? Or what, there's gorillas under my bed, But my mom grew up in the time when gorillas were the monster ape men sort of things, because Diane Fossey and those people had not done their studies yet in the 1960s to learn that these are gentle, peaceful giants. And I would hate to see that happen to Sasquatches, because they're not monsters by any stretch of the imagination. Sure, man, they're wild animals. They're potentially dangerous, but you treat them with respect and they're going to leave you alone. And so really it's about education more than anything for me at this point. I'm completely satisfied that they're real. I've got no question about it whatsoever. So what can I do for them? Sasquatches have given me a tremendous amount. I'm forever indebted to them the rest of my life. Not only just because finding Bigfoot, and I'm blessed by owning the Bigfoot Museum and stuff, but I met my wife while filming Finding Bigfoot. I met my dog. We found my dog tied to a tree. Out in the woods in the dark, while filming Finding Bigfoot. Sasquatches, accidentally gave me every great love in my life, and I will never be able to repay them. The least I can do is try to soften the blow of discovery, since I know that's coming.
Okay, so let's look at this for a second here. Do you fear that this creature will be hunted to almost extinction if we do prove its existence?
No, not really. No, because even after they're proven to be real, they're not going to be any easier to get around. They're not going to be any easier to find or film or do anything like that. And I would like to think that even though Americans tend to be rather like gun nuts in general, and again, I own firearms. Don't get me wrong. You don't start screaming, liberal screaming at me and stuff like that. You can, I'm not the guy to be pointing around. I don't fit your perception. I promise you. Even though we're kind of gun nuts down here, I don't think that most of us at least are the type of people to go out and shoot a Sasquatch. I've spoken to probably more than 24 hunters over my last 26 years who have had Sasquatches in their gun sights and not been able to pull the trigger because they look too human. Now, part of that might be compassion. Part of that might be like they don't want to be charged with voluntary manslaughter or something because it may be a gray area or not, whether it's illegal to shoot a Sasquatch, but it is completely illegal to shoot a jackass in a monkey suit. So maybe they didn't pull the trigger for that reason. But I just don't think that I don't in the same way I don't think that people would want to go to Rwanda to go hunt gorillas. Even the people who go after trophy hunter, like who are trophy hunters, and I strongly oppose trophy hunting. It doesn't seem there's no catch and release when you're dealing with a gun, right? Mm-hmm. I strongly oppose trophy hunting. I don't think that people would want to shoot, a man ape or an ape man or whatever you want to call these things. I'm probably wrong. There's some sick people out there, but mental illness is what it is.
Yeah, we're not a big fan around here of trophy hunting. Just not a fan of that at all.
No, it's inappropriate. I think it's at the very least rude.
But
if not downright monstrous.
But here's the problem, Cliff. I can actually see that happening. All right, let's go hunt some Sasquatch. We know this creature exists because there's always going to be one of those idiots who needs the head on the wall. We see it with elephants. We've seen it, with buffalo. We've seen it with any major animal in this world. Lions, look at the dentist who shot the famous lion a couple of years ago, all because he wanted to, have a lion, a special lion on his wall. I mean, we see it all the time, and unfortunately, people aren't nice. You know what I'm saying?
No,
people aren't nice.
But if these things are what I think they are, which is paranthropus, they are hominins, and a hominin is a human ancestor or an offshoot thereof. In which case, killing would make it homicide if we were wise enough to pass those laws. And you know what? Honestly, in another way, like I said, it's not going to be any easier. They're not going to be able to find these things any easier than they do now. And just because you see one, as you very well know, but more than me, just because you see one doesn't mean there's only one there. I think that if you shot at one of these things, man, you better reload really fast. And I think you're just screwed. They're going to drop 3 or 4 trees across the road on the way out and pick you off one by one. Your gun isn't going to help you. Go hide behind your gun somewhere else because you're a coward for doing it. Your gun will not help you if you have an angry Sasquatch coming after you.
It's going to be interesting, man. It's going to be interesting. Hey, my friend, we've only got about a minute left here with you tonight, and I want to say through all the audio issues that we had tonight and everything that we went through, thank you so much for taking the time, Cliff, to come on Spaced Out Radio for the first time, and I hope you will give us another shot once we get all of our technical snafus out of the way, because we'd love to have you here again.
I'd love to come back. I love nice, rowdy conversations. I love dissenting points of view. I think too many people, I don't know what it's like in Canada, but I find too many people in America like to live inside their own bubble, and there's mirrors on the wall everywhere. They're afraid of dissenting points of view, and you should welcome them because it strengthens your own. So thank you very much for coming on and challenging me and having a great, open, honest discussion.
Absolutely. That's what it's all about. That's how we solve these mysteries. We may not have solved the full mystery tonight, but hey, we do know you believe in Sasquatch. I believe in Sasquatch. Many people out there listening to this believe in Sasquatch and have had their own sightings. How can people find your information on your website? 15 seconds.
Just look up cliffbarackman.com. If you can't spell it, look up Cliff and Bigfoot. It'll go right there. And I also own the North American Bigfoot Center, which is a Bigfoot museum right outside of Portland, Oregon. So if you find yourself in the neighborhood, look me up. Come on in, say hello.
Appreciate it, my friend. Thank you so much for taking the time to be on Spaced Out Radio tonight. Coming up next, we're going to have some fun. We got the SOR Newswire. We have the Thought of the Dave. Lots of Spaced Out Radio continues right after this. Thanks, Cliff. I appreciate that.
No problem at all, man. Happy to do it. I'm sorry about the technical issues and all that, but it seems like, it's growing pains, essentially.
Well, I got to edit this out, and we'll make sure that we make it look good here. So thank you so much. I appreciate you taking the time, and I really hope we did enough to earn another shot with you here.
I'm always happy to do it. Always happy to do it. Don't worry about anything at all. It was all good.
Appreciate
all right?
that. Take care.
All right, you take it easy, man. Thanks for
Bye-bye.
having me on.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Nice dude. Very nice dude. Did not expect that. Did not expect that. I don't know why, but I didn't. Do 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 do. All right. Is that? All right. Let's go here. Do 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 do. I guess I can put these up.
Hang out with Dave and our crew privately in our
commercials.
members-only section.
Look at that.
With your
Look
signing,
at that.
you'll receive newsletters on what's going on with Spaced Out Radio. You'll have direct contact with the host during the show in our chat, live streaming videos, and a great forum for your posts and more. Become a space traveler now at spacedoutradio.com.
Hello, this is your guitar man, Ron Bumblefoot Fall, and I have to tell you, I love the response I get for Little Brother is Watching from Spaced Out Radio fans. It's amazing how music can inspire and make people think deeper about what's going on in the supernatural world. You can head over to my website, bumblefoot.com, to check out my music, my guitar workshops, my touring, even check out some of the hot sauces that I'm working on. And make sure you keep on listening, because with Spaced Out Radio, you know Little Brother is watching.
Hey, Spaced Out Radio fans.
Out Radio.
It's John Resnick, founder of the Chive and Chive Charities. Our goal is to make the life of veterans, first responders, and those with rare medical conditions 10% happier. We do this by donating one grant item, ranging from dance to therapy programs to prosthetic limbs, to those who need it most. To contribute to Spaced Out Radio's official charity, head over to chivecharities.org and become a donor today.
Thanks, Human Carl.
You wanted new SOR gear, and now you can have it. The SOR Vault is fully stocked with t-shirts, hats, hoodies, mugs, and everything in between, with great logos for you to choose from. So head on over to spacedoutradio.com, click on the SOR Vault, and go shopping. Pricing is quite affordable, and you can look good representing your favorite show. So go to our website and pick up your new SOR wear at the SOR Vault today.
Let's go like that. Let's turn those down. How about that? We got like 2 minutes. 2 minutes. Thanks, Brian, for coming on in. I'm worn out, man. Worn out. I actually feel pretty good, though. I had like an hour and 15-minute nap when I got home from work. I got a hair in between my teeth, courtesy of my beard. Don't like that. Don't like that at all. No, not a fan. Not a fan. Where'd you go, Corin's the booking guy? We've rounded third. We're heading for home tonight on Spaced Out Radio. I am your host, Dave Scott, sitting in the captain's chair of SOR headquarters. Thank you so much for tuning us in tonight. We want to remind you that if you've missed most of this show or others, check out our free archives by going to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Just do me the favor, hit that subscribe button. Our website is spacedoutradio.com, where we have a plethora of features for you, including rocking out to Bumblefoot and reading up on Captain Shirk's SOR Newswire. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio and on Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show. Speaking of the news. The news is always changing, which is why we bring you the SOR Newswire at the back end of every show, where we get to the weird, the strange, the wacky, and sometimes the little bit odd. And I don't hear my theme music. Why is my theme music all of a sudden not playing? I don't know. It kind of bugs me. I want my theme music. Let's see if we can try that again. Is that seriously not working? Odd. Very odd. All right, let's just get to it as we work out the kinks here. I don't know where these guys are going, but apparently they're about to go on their first mission. Earlier this month, in the Middle East, 20 U.S. troops were sworn in as Space Force recruits at the Al Udeid Air Base in Qatar, becoming the newest U.S. military branch's first foreign deployed troops. Space Force in Qatar. Does that make any sense whatsoever? Let's be honest here. Anyways, it comes amid a Space Force recruiting drive and criticism that it is a vanity project of President Trump. The group is making history, U.S. Air Force Colonel Todd Benson stated. Yes, why not state that? They are the first members of the United States Space Force to be deployed in support of combat operations. Combat operations? Are you telling us you got aliens up there? You got aliens in Qatar in the Middle East? Is that what's going on here? Because if you got some aliens, we need to know about it. Just plain and simple. Plain and simple. Any hoodles, moving on. U.S. troops are, of course, not new to the Middle East, but it was actually where the first space war was ever fought, historians say. In 1991's Desert Storm operation, the U.S. troops first used satellite-based GPS while pushing Iraqi troops out of Kuwait. The new military service, overseen by the U.S. Air Force, has said they do not intend to immediately put troops into orbit. Rather, its mission is to protect U.S. assets, such as the hundreds of satellites used for communication and surveillance. U.S. Air Force Secretary Barbara Barrett says the Space Force would compromise about 16,000 Air Force and civilian personnel. The Trump administration allocated $40 million to fund the force in its first year. Space Force has been occasionally mocked since President Trump created it as the first U.S. military branch since the Air Force was added in 1947. Netflix even has a comedy series of the same name, and jokes have been made about everything from the choice of the not very intergalactic appearing woodland camouflage uniforms to their use of an insignia that bears the resemblance of the Star Trek logo. The Force has defended its use of camouflage uniforms, saying it was utilizing current Army Air Force uniforms and saving costs of designing, producing a new one. In doing so, just ask your gray buddies. They got that, those intriguing bodysuits that are like silverish gray, and, you got some aliens there. Just ask them. All right. Guess what? It turns out that there is actually a genuine plan sitting in the Pentagon to defend the United States just in case the event of a zombie apocalypse. Your taxpayers' dollars at work, America. The destruction of mankind at the hands of the contagious virus of zombies is a scenario that is played out time and time again in movies, books, television shows. But what if it were to happen for real? Apparently, this scenario has been played out as the U.S. government would never take it seriously, but in factual fact, they do. Albeit one that even admits that such a thing is never likely to actually happen in reality. Known as CONUP 8888, the official zombie preparedness plan includes a disclaimer noting that it was not actually designed as a joke and that the strategies outlines are the real deal. It was written back in 2011 by junior military officers at the United States U.S. Strategic Command as a training exercise that tasked them with presenting a general invasion contingency plan. The resulting 31-page document includes many concepts you might be expected to find in such a plan, especially if you are a fan of zombies and apocalypse movies. What's interesting is the seriousness of the presentation. Despite the inclusion of fantastical concepts such as evil magic zombies, space zombies, and other bizarre theoretical subcategories, it is clear that the plan was never intended to be taken literally as far as zombies are concerned anyways, and serves as more of a general template for an invasion scenario in case the dead come back alive. Good to see the military is prepared for this. Here's a scary one. Canadian police have swooped in on an apartment complex in Montreal in connection with a ricin-laced letter that was sent to President Donald Trump, allegedly by a woman who then tried to enter the U.S. while armed with a gun. I think she takes life a little too seriously. Authorities arrested a person suspected of sending the deadly poison by mail, addressed to the White House. A source said the person arrested was a woman with Canadian citizenship. Now it has emerged that she has also allegedly sent more letters to law enforcement officials in Texas. Police say in Canada, she sent one letter addressed to Trump, another 5 addressed to addresses in Texas. The woman has not been named, but it is understood she was arrested by the FBI and may face charges from prosecutors in Washington. At the apartment complex where she lives, police roped off a modern beige and brown apartment building and evacuated its inhabitants. The RCMP confirmed that the letter had apparently been sent from Canada and said that the FBI had requested assistance. The envelope was intercepted at a government mail center before it arrived at the White House. U.S. agencies were investigating whether or not ricin letters were sent to or by the same person to other addresses as well. First off, that's not very Canadian of this lady. You know, it's okay to shake a fist. It's okay to protest with a sign that says, "I'm not happy." Okay, but to send ricin to the President of the United States, whether you like him or not, you know, that's wrong. By the way, ricin can cause death, within 36 to 72 hours of exposure, with an amount as small as some on a pinhead. No antidote exists. This is deadly stuff. And the fact that she had a full apartment of this? Oh, bad Canadian. Bad Canadian. Sticking in Quebec, the residents of Asbestos, Quebec, or Province de Quebec, don't like the replacement names Apolloni, Jeffrey, Phoenix, or Trois Lacs, which refer respectively to the endangered turtle, the name of the city's first asbestos mine operator, the mythical bird, and a former town that merged with asbestos in 1999. So, name change is on hold. People can be scared we're going to forget the past. People can be scared that we're going to lose our identity. So it's a major process we're living, Carolyn Paye, a town councillor, has said. It's a historical one, too. It's not so often that a municipality changes its name. The town, more than 80 miles east of Montreal, thrived for decades on asbestos mining and product manufacturing, and its asbestos mine was once the single largest source of the product in the world. Asbestos was once the main go-to material in insulating buildings. The product is now banned in most construction around the world. Inhaling it can cause severe medical issues, including lung cancer, mesothelioma, and other diseases, and is responsible for tens of thousands of deaths worldwide. Canada banned the substance in 2018. The town of more than 7,000 residents was expected to vote between October 14th and 18th for the name change. However, it's now up in the air on what they're going to call the town, but asbestos is off the ballot, as it should be. Horrible name. Horrible stuff. A humpback whale has found its way back into the sea weeks after getting lost in a murky crocodile-infested river in northern Australia, while an estimated 270 pilot whales have become stranded in the country's south. There have been no previous recorded sightings of whales in remote eastern Alligator River in the Northern Territory's World Heritage listed Kakadu National Park, and no one can explain why at least 3 of the blue water mammals ventured so deep inland in a river with little visibility. In a more common phenomena, about 270 pilot whales were reported stranded on the sandbars of Australia's southern coast island of Tasmania. In Northern Ireland, Where'd that come from? We're talking about Australia. Come on, Dave. Anyways, the last of the humpback whale trio managed to navigate its way through the shallow waters and channels at the Broad River mouth and back into Van Diemen Gulf over the weekend. Yes, it made its way out on the high tides, and we're pleased that it appeared to be in good condition and not suffering any ill effects. Humpbacks follow the western Australian coast in their annual migration from the tropics to Antarctica. A helicopter crew spotted the whale Sunday 9 kilometers outside the river mouth. Northern Territory government whale and dolphin scientist Carol Palmer said he or she looked really relaxed, was cleaning off all the mud off itself actually, and we were just so relieved that this whale had actually made itself out of the East Alligator River. A group of recreational sailors first spotted the lost trio back on September 2nd, more than 20 kilometers from the river's mouth. Good that the whales made it. A lifelong Dungeons & Dragons fan is celebrating a big anniversary. 38 years of running the same ongoing game. Robert Wardaw said he started running his campaign of the fantasy role-playing game, which relies on dice, characters created by the players, and a lot of imagination to advance. In 1982, when only 4 players participated in this group, the players control their character, but that's all they control, Wardaw said. I control all other aspects, whether it's the weather, whether it's the setting, anything they're facing. Wardaw said he now runs 2 to 4 sessions each week over Zoom for his nearly 60 active players. The Dungeon Master said the game started out by following the original 1982 version of Dungeons & Dragons rules, but has since developed its own set of rules as a campaign evolved. My game is very different from the official Dungeons & Dragons, Wardaw said. It's a rule system that is developed and is constantly developing, constantly changing, and constantly getting better. Wardaw said his 38-year-long game is likely a record for D&D, and he hasn't heard of any other game that comes close to the same length. One of these things that sets my game apart from all other games is that the only thing that's going to limit it, I suppose, is my lifespan. Good for him. Good for him. They say if you love your job, you'll never work a day in your life. Well, it seems Michelob Ultra might have that job, at least for one lucky beer lover. The American beer brewing company, owned by Anheuser-Busch, is hiring a chief exploration officer to travel the country for 6 months, repping Michelob Ultra and posting photos at national parks to the brand's social media accounts, the company announced on its Twitter. Plus, $50,000 and expenses covered. The ideal candidate, yeah, you heard me right, $50,000 and expenses covered to travel the U.S. for 6 months drinking beer and posting selfies. The ideal candidate, by the way, has a deep appreciation for the joy that is connecting with nature and what it brings, as well as the love of beer. The offer includes trips to Yosemite, Sequoia, Joshua Tree, Saguaro, and Big Bend in a comfortable camper van equipped with its own bathroom and shower. The brand says the selected CEO will be able to bring a right-hand person or animal along for the journey. Oh, and you must be over 21 to apply. I don't even drink beer. I would like that job. I really would. All right. Sometimes you just got to torch your house. So when the insurance company calls, you can tell them this happened. So there's this video of terrifying footage of an enormous spider sitting above a doorway and eating a gecko in Western Australia. Yeah, it's one of them huntsman spiders, okay, that's probably like 5-6 inches long. It's chomping away down on a gecko. Looks like one of them sun geckos. A man can be seen in the reflection watching and filming the bizarre sight in disbelief as a lizard disappears into the spider's mouth with only its tail sticking out. Yeah. So, this is on his house, man. There's no point in living there anymore. So, here it goes. TikTok users commented on the spider's size and confidence and told the man filming, "Burn the house down. Could have gone my entire life without seeing this," one said. "I saw a spider eat a bird when I lived on the Gold Coast," another wrote. Others said large, hairy spiders were the reason they would never visit Australia. "This is how fires started in Australia," another said. "It's time to move. Where in Australia is this? Just so I know I'm not going there." Well, science expert Dr. Lizzie Lowe from Macquarie's University states it's not unusual to see this, but a surprise as lizards were harder for arachnids to actually digest. They usually love eating cockroaches because when you think of it, cockroaches are mush inside and they're easy for them to digest, whereas lizards are more complex with bones and harder to catch. She added that the spider probably caught the lizard due to poor eyesight. A fun fact about huntsmen is they have terrible vision and can only see light, dark movement. That's probably why it caught the lizard, because it caught it without releasing it. Oh, goodness, isn't that nice? Isn't that nice? Burn the house down. It's easier. If you got 5-inch spiders crawling up your walls, eating lizards, seriously, you got to do something about the house. No point living there anymore. Moving on. An Oklahoma woman told police that she had to poop so bad. Yeah, you heard me right. She had to drop a deuce so bad before taking off and leading them on a high-speed chase, new body camera footage shows. Emily St. Owings, at 28 years old, was pulled over around 9 a.m. last Tuesday when a cop noticed that she was not wearing a seatbelt in the city of Enid. She didn't have her insurance or any identification except for a medical marijuana card, but the officer ran her information and determined that her driver's license had been revoked. When he informs her of this, that he's just checking for outstanding warrants, she tearfully tells the officer, "But I have to poop so bad." Yes, this is all proven on body camera footage. "It's my birthday. It's my effing birthday," she says. "Why won't you just let me go?" Owens asked him. To the cop, who responds, "Because your license is suspended." Owings apologized again and reiterated that she didn't know, "Otherwise, I won't drive no more. But can I please at least go home and poop?" This is her words, not mine. It was then determined during the stop that there was a warrant out for her arrest, allegedly fighting an officer, according to police. The cop then asked her to get out of the vehicle, informing her that she was under arrest, the outlet reported. "You have warrants in the Woods County, and they are coming to get you," the officer stated. But Owings refused to cooperate, telling the officer, "No, they're not. F you guys." Oh, she has a potty mouth. She then sped off from the scene, leading authorities on a pursuit for several blocks with speeds topping 70 miles per hour. Owings allegedly blew through several stop signs before she ultimately stopped and surrendered to police with her guns drawn, but she apparently had business to take care of. "Can I poop in your car, man?" Owings asked an escorted police officer who led her to the police car. "You could have already been on your way to jail," the officer said, to which she responded, "Yeah, but not pooping. Police say they discovered a pipe with meth." Oh, here we go. Yeah, when in doubt, when somebody's got to drop a deuce in the back of a police car, it always contains meth, doesn't it? Yes, apparently it does. So anyways, here she is. As they're searching the vehicle, they find the meth pipe. She was booked into Garfield County Detention Center on charges that include reckless driving, driving under the suspension, and possession of drug paraphernalia. Oh, yes, I'm sure this is something that her parents will feel very, very proud of in the future. I'm still trying to figure out why this is not playing, because we need a little bit of this. Let's go here, shall we? Thought of the Dave happens every night at this time, where we ask a question on our Facebook and Twitter pages, then read your responses and read them on the air because we love the audience participation around here. And thank you for that wonderful clown, Marty. Looks like the lady who had to go to the bathroom. Today's Thought of the Dave is as follows. If you ran face to face into a Sasquatch, what do you think you'd do? Now, the funny part about this is, when I go to post these questions, the Thought of the Daves on Facebook and Twitter, I always post them on Facebook first. But I mustn't have actually pressed the button, because I have them on Twitter. I just don't have them on Facebook. Like, I'm looking at my profile here, and I don't see the post. I really don't. I don't know where it went. I don't know if it filtered out. Don't know. What I do know is I got a few answers on Twitter. Thank you to Marty for the clown. Actually does look like the driver in the last story. He goes, I'd offer it a treat, maybe a spare sandwich from my backpack, then take a shaky picture and leave. Well, Marty, that's just the way it works. Shanna, try to telepathically convey universal love to it with peaceful intent while looking into seeing where the portal was or where his spaceship was. She wants to pilot it. Jules gets a final word. I watched it until it left, then a complete hysteria of witnessing something not supposed to exist set in. Thank you. We'll do it all again tomorrow. Thank you to Captain Shirk for the news and to Cliff Barackman for hanging out with us on the show. We got Mr. Ron Bumblefoot Thaw rocking in the background with Little Brother is watching. Bumblefoot is the official music of Space Out Radio, rocking us in and out of every single show. Get your horns up for the guitar god himself. Thank you so much to all of you checking us out tonight. Your patience has been so necessary for what we've been doing with the studio this week. Thank you so much for doing this, because together, my friends,
we're watching.
We own the night. Mr. Bumblefoot, we need a favor. We need you to take us home. Yes, the Woo train is docked for the night. But tomorrow, my friends, we shall ride again. Your seats are always available. Your tickets never expire. And if you want to bring a friend, we got room for them too. Have a great day. Okay. We're going to have to fix that snafu. Excuse me. All right. We're going to have to fix that snafu. I gotta go find a show, because I sure as hell can't send this one off. Thanks, Quest, for bringing us home, man. No, we're not downloading that one. Hmm. I'll download this one. Shit, son of a bitch, I did it again. I can't believe I just did the exact same thing 3 times in a row and now I gotta redo it. Such an idiot. Unbelievable. All right. While that's downloading, guys, I'll be right back in a few minutes. The old Davey has to go to the bathroom. Apparently, I'm going to go take a poop and then have some cops chase me and throw me in jail. I'll be right back. Okay. Old Davy's back. Yeah. Old Davy's back. Oh. I gotta figure this out now. Screwed up so much stuff here that I don't even know what the hell I'm doing. Honestly, I feel lost in here. Same studio, same everything. Just feel lost. And of course, oh, there it is. All right. Let's do this, shall we? Why did that only download like... All right. That didn't work. Actually... No, that didn't work. What we're going to do is we are just going to see what we have in here. That's what we're going to do for tonight. I'm not interested in doing this tonight. I gotta figure this stuff out. Marvin the Martian actually it's behind me. He's in, let me figure out where I am here. He's in this corner here. In 2 seconds here, people. Where's that email address? 295-408. 295-408. Verify. We'll fire this up. Yeah, so we got a few things that we need to obviously clear up here. Not happy, not sad about or mad about things that didn't happen tonight. But we'll get it improved, and we'll make things happen over the next little bit. So there's going to be some technical snafus this week, and it's just a matter of getting used to a new system, new camera angle, new everything that's kind of in place here. So yeah, we'll get her going. We'll get her going. I should have more energy for you guys tomorrow night too. We'll do another sound check and get everything ready. Tomorrow night we have Marcus Allen. He is coming back. This is a guy who was just brilliant a few months back, talking about what's the word I'm looking for? The moon landings, whether they were real or not. And so we were able to have a great time with him. And so Corey got him back to discuss his other field of interest, which is crop circles. So good job on that one. Cord's the booking guy. Hi, gorgeous Teresa. You look absolutely stunning once again. Randy, if you're playing the audio version, we had some technical audio issues with the first half an hour of that audio. So if you skip to the 30-minute mark, it'll be on there. I probably should erase that one, but there's good audio at the beginning. And we just go from there. We just redid our studio, and we're just getting over a few of these little snafus that we got going on here. And we're not really where I want to be yet, but we're getting closer. We're probably 90% of the way there, 92% of the way there. Like I said, we have some things we need to work on. So, but the main thing is we're getting there, and we're trending in the right direction. So I do apologize. Yeah, where is your beard? Oh, yeah. I still got a bunch of shit on the floors, man, that I gotta clean up. I literally ripped apart all the shelving and everything that was in here, and my friends Malcolm and Linda were over. They were giving a hand, so we're trying to get everything reorganized and kind of going from there. It does look better in here. It does look better. So trying to get everything organized and kind of go from there. We'll get her going. We'll get her going, and that's just the way it's going to be. And we'll get there. We shall get there. Anyways, I'm going to cut out early here because I really do want to get some sleep, and I do want to try and figure things out. I got to get into the studio a little bit earlier tomorrow and get this figured out with some questions that I have for Chuck and everybody. So let's reconvene tomorrow night. Hopefully it'll be a little bit smoother. Hopefully it'll be a little bit better. And we'll make things happen. Once again, I apologize for all of the technical snafus tonight. I am working on it. We are working hard, and we'll go from there. Okay. So thank you so much for your time. We'll try to be better tomorrow, and I know you guys will be patient. You guys